Good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Lunenburg Select Board. Today is Tuesday, January 7th, 2025. In accordance with the requirements of open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast live over the Lunenburg Public Access channel, on Facebook Live on the Public Access page, and will be uploaded to the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel after the meeting. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at this meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. I move to enter into a joint executive session with the Conservation Commission.
Yeah, it's feedback.
Yep. Let me mute myself.
All right, thank you. All right. I move to enter into a joint executive session with the Conservation Commission and re-enter open session after exiting executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation if an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the litigating position of the town, and the chair of the Select Board and the chair of the Conservation Commission so declare, which we do, namely Town of Lunenburg versus Latour, Worcester Superior Court docket number 2385 CV01189. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. This is going to be a roll call vote. I will roll call both members of Conservation and the Select Board. Selectman Imke.
Aye.
Selectman Alonso.
Aye.
Selectman Moore.
Aye.
And aye for myself. I'm going to turn it over to the chair of the Conservation to complete the roll call.
So Jenny Putherer? Aye. Rich Birsch?
Aye.
Is Jeff Viviano with us? I didn't see him online. Okay, he's absent. Mike LaRouche?
Present.
And how do you vote, Mike?
Aye.
How do you vote to go into executive session with the Select Board? Do you
Aye.
vote aye or nay?
I heard aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, sorry. Chris St. Germain? Aye. And aye for myself.
All right, and I'm also acknowledging that we have Attorney Chaplin and Sophia with us as well. We are now in executive session.
Recording stopped. the last that goes out first.
All right. Do you see the Zoom? Okay, oh, we have to turn our volume back on.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. That'll be a special day when Mr. Walker is out. Unbelievable.
Let me get this chair lifted. Where is the thing? All right, good evening. The Select Board's coming out of executive session. We're back in open session. The time, we're a little late coming out. The time is 7:09. If I may ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good evening. Do we have any public comments this evening from the board?
No.
Just wish everyone a happy new year. Hope everybody had a great holiday. Looking forward to good things in 2025.
Hear, hear. All right, and do we have any public comments this evening from the public? Mr. McDonald.
Well, while Mr. McDonald's coming up, I did want to mention one thing. I did want to recognize the passing of one of the members of the Council on Aging, an attendee. Just last year, he had celebrated, along with another member, his 100th birthday, but Fred Cuddy, who has passed over the holidays, and so I want to give my best to his family. He was a real regular member at the senior, when it was called the Senior Center, now the Adult Activity Center. And again, I knew him to some degree. He was a great guy, served the country in World War II, and raised a great family, and he'll be missed.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald.
Good evening and Happy New Year to everybody at home. Mr. Alonso, I agree with Mr. Cuddy. He was a great guy, and our prayers go out to his family. Also, our prayers go out to Jimmy Carter's family as he's laying in state today at the Capitol. I'm here for an update. As you know, I pulled papers on Michael Ray Jeffries back during the summer, and I want to let you know the progress on that. I literally have hundreds of names, literally. And that came out it was funny, a lot of people called me and said they want to sign because they were being solicited. So it doesn't matter, I have the signatures here. But I thought about this, and really thought about it. If you indulge me for 1 minute. We have the names on the recall. The reason I didn't file is because you, Michael Ray Jeffries, quoted that this would be your last year. I did not want to put the town, and most of all you, through this action. Why, if you are leaving, but make no mistake, people do know what is happening in town. But I got this email today, and it stuck to me from another person. It said, "Hey Dave, the vice chairman stated at the last meeting that he wanted the names of the persons making public records requests." Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. "And disclose the amount of time the employees are spending on the requests. It is our right to request information. Everybody has that right. In fact, even some of the board of selectmen members here requesting information through the Public Information Act. It is not that as much of requests that happen through, it is not what's so much, and this is what their word is, not mine, bullshit occurring outside the public view. This would have been no need for these requests." Which makes sense. If something wasn't going on, people wouldn't be calling and asking for a request. The BOS loves to conduct as much business as possible outside the public opening meeting. And it's the MO since day one. Everyone in town should be suspicious of his secret behind-the-scenes activities, and he has proven that he cannot be trusted. I have some emails that I apply to what I've seen. So anyways, I sent that out to you guys. I sent that out. The only thing I'm going to say is, what I want is, I have questions that I'd like the board to work together on and answer them. That's all I want is answers, as much as everybody else. So I'm going to leave these with you, Mr. Jeffries. And give a copy to town manager, and Caesar's not here. And I just request that you as a board work together and answer the questions. I want to thank you for your time. Have a great night, and again, Happy New Year.
Thank you, Ms. McDonald. Do we have any other public comments this evening from the public? All right, seeing none. Any announcements tonight? Communications from other boards?
Looks like we have a public comment.
Oh, I missed a public comment, so we're going to go ahead and go back to public comment from Berez B.
Do I have to unmute him?
Yep. You already clicked it. So we're asking Berez B to unmute.
Hi, George Burden, 39 Cortlandt Circle. Just joined towards the end of Mr. McDonald's statements, and one thing I did hear that I think he said Mr. Jeffries can't be trusted. That is actually one reason I'm here tonight. I'm here to present a situation where I had Mr. Jeffries indicated to the public, to the residents of Lunenburg, that he spoke to my attorney. Mr. Jeffries has never spoken to my attorney. He then sent me an email and said my attorney had forgotten. Do you think attorneys forget something like this? I don't think so. It's more that Mr. Jeffries is lying to our residents of Lunenburg about multiple things, and that's just one example. I'll leave it at that, and thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments this evening? All right, seeing and hearing none, we're going to go to our appointments this evening. So we have a 7:15 joint meeting with the Library Board of Trustees regarding an appointment for David, is it Neos or? Neos. Okay. To expire May 2025. I'll ask the chair or whoever is currently going to be conducting the meeting if you want to call your meeting to order. And I think the booth will come out and provide some microphones. That way you guys can sit at the table.
We have, like you, we have a short board tonight.
Okay. Yep, the booth's going to come out and provide some microphones for you.
Show them how to use it, too.
To use it, just click this, and it is unmuted, and then click that, and it's muted. So red means muted, green means muted.
I think that's, I can understand that.
Good evening. My name is Richard Mayu, live at 88 Laurel Lane. I am the Vice Chair of the Lunenburg Public Library Board of Trustees, and I want to call the trustees meeting to order at 7:16.
Thank you. From your members, I see we have some members on Zoom. So we have Jana Lee on Zoom. We also have Harry, and I'm looking, we have Maya. Okay, and then present with you today
Is Donna Saya and our candidate David Neosi. And Library Director Norham. But he's not a member.
Is he invisible? Dick, is he invisible to you or something?
He just comes to look good. He adds a little youth to us.
All right. So for the candidate, this is, we recognize that there's a vacancy on the Board of Library Trustees. Based on our charter, when there's a vacancy for an elected position, it is a joint appointment by the Select Board and the remaining members of the existing board. The appointment will last till the next election. And then that seat, and you can get more information from the town clerk, but whatever that term is, every seat has a term to it. I'm not sure when the natural term would expire. I think it's 2026 or 7. And so what would occur then is you'd fill the seat until the next election, and there would be opportunity at the caucus to sign up, to run for the remainder of that term. I'm going to open first to I'll ask the members of the library trustees if you've had the opportunity to meet with the candidate, and if so, if there's a recommendation generally from the trustees.
We met with Mr. Neosi at the last meeting of the Board of Trustees, had a nice conversation. We asked him some questions, and his commitment to the board is what we would expect for a member to be. And he was able to sit through that entire meeting, and having sat through the meeting, decided it was an okay group. So we voted in favor of asking David to be a member of our board, and expect that he will be a very good addition to the board.
Thank you. David, I'll ask you to introduce yourself, explain a little bit about your history here in Lunenburg, if you so choose, and your interest in being appointed to this vacancy.
Sure. I've been living in Lunenburg since 1995. I live on Arbor Street. My wife and I have lived there since 2000. In fact, we share a driveway with a former select board member, Mr. Franco. And we have been pretty active in town. My wife is a French teacher, and she also teaches piano. I'm an attorney. I practice right over the Fitchburg line on Lunenburg Street in Fitchburg. And I've been practicing in Fitchburg since 1993. My own background is, besides practicing law, is I have quite a bit of experience in the nonprofit world. I've led a couple national nonprofits and sat on a number of different boards, which, although not directly comparable to the library trustees, it's kind of similar in a way. It's a board atmosphere, responsible for budgeting and things like that, oversight. And I've been interested in the library board for a while, actually. I've spoken with the director about it previously. And it's the type of activity in town that I think I'd be interested in. I think libraries are important. I'm committed to them. I do have some experience in the literary world as well. Books and that sort of thing are definitely up my alley. So I would really support a strong library. I'd like to see it thrive in town. I'd like to see it involved in a lot of things. And to the extent a trustee can kind of move things in that direction a little bit, I'd like to do that. I find the current board to be very receptive and cooperative, so I think I could be a productive member.
Thank you. If I'm correct, I think you lived on the Colonial before you moved. Colonial halfway down the hill on Mass Ave. Is that before you moved to Arbor Street? Is that correct?
We did live there,
Yeah,
from 95 to 2000, that's right.
Yep, because I remember meeting your wife when I was in high school, and I would walk home, and I would pass your house, and I thought your wife was so pleasant and just such a nice person. But that was I never met you,
I'd have
but I
to
did
agree.
meet your wife back when I was a teenager. All right, I'm going to open up to the board for any questions the board may have for you as a candidate for appointment.
I don't have any questions. I thank you for stepping forward, and I think you've expressed your reasons and motivation for joining very well, and just want to thank you.
Sure.
Just a standard question, because this does require running in a couple of months, few months, are you willing to do that and run for the remainder of the seat?
Oh, yes, that was one of the questions that the
Right.
other trustees had for me when we met as well. They certainly don't want somebody coming on board for a couple of months and then turning around, so.
I wouldn't thought so. I mean, my path has crossed with David several times over the years.
Recording in
He
progress.
He moved into town a little bit earlier than I did, but at many events, I've gotten to know him a little bit and his wife. So I think there couldn't be a stronger candidate. His background, his commitment to education and books and the role of the library in town. I know many members of the trustees as well, and I think it's going to be an excellent fit. So I couldn't be more supportive.
I don't have any questions, but thank you so much, and it sounds like you're going to be a great addition.
Thank you.
Lou has obviously said such great things about his neighbors, but it is good to see that you're willing to step into this role. I've worked with the library now for, I think, the entirety of my tenure here on the select board. It is by far, I think, and no offense to this board, the best board in town in terms of, I think, just the dynamics. It's so refreshing to go to the library trustee meetings. It's such a good group, and no doubt that you'll blend right in. Any questions? I'll turn it over to you, Dick, for any questions you want your members to ask to the candidate, and if not, if you want to make a motion.
No, I think as a board, we've talked to David, and I don't think there's any doubt. So I'd like to ask for do I make a formal motion to
If you'd like.
appoint David Neosi to the Lunenburg Public Library Board of Trustees to serve out the remainder of the term of Bob Conroy?
I'll second that.
All right, and that is with the understanding that the term shall expire May 2025.
Yes.
We have a motion and a second. I'll ask you to roll call your members, and then we will roll call select board members.
Those of you who are remote, Harry?
I'm here. I don't know if anyone can hear me.
Oh, you have to use your microphone, unfortunately, while you're talking, Dick.
Pick up the mic. Oh, this way. Yeah.
Can you hear me now? We're voting on David, so all in favor, Harry?
Aye.
Jana?
Aye.
Maya? Aye? Maya?
Aye. Yeah.
Donna? And myself, aye.
All right, on the select board, Selectman Imke.
Aye.
Selectman Alonso.
Aye.
Selectman Moore.
Aye.
And an aye for myself. Congratulations on your appointment. The next steps for you will be to check in with the town clerk, get sworn into the role, and then again, we are going to have caucus coming up here in a month or so, and it'd be good to go to that, and that we don't have to pull signatures. And again, thank you for being with us this evening.
Thank you.
And the real question, now that you're official, how is Franco as a neighbor?
On the record, they're great people.
All right, and Dick, I'll give you this opportunity to adjourn your meeting, and it will need to be a roll call vote because we have some members on Zoom.
Would like to have a motion to adjourn the Lunenburg Public Library Board of Trustees special meeting? Second. Donna seconds. Roll call. Harry? Is that an aye?
Yes, it's an aye.
Jana?
Aye.
Maya?
Aye.
Donna? Aye. Dick? Aye.
All right, thank you.
No, thank you very much, Board. The cooperation is fantastic.
All right, thank you. All right, while they leave the room, we'll give it a moment here while we pull up the next presentation.
I'm assuming we're not doing the introduction this week? The 705?
No, yeah,
Okay.
I was asked to pass that over.
So there's no this, there's no this.
That's weird.
It says we're restricted from screen sharing, even though we're the host of the meeting.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and click this, allow all participants to screen share, and see if that shows.
You're the host of the meeting?
Yeah, it says me, host.
We're having just some technical things here. We're trying to screen share. Yeah. So I was looking at the tools, and I allowed all participants to screen share. They don't have all the features. Okay. All right, we need to share a presentation, but we're just going to take about a minute or two here. We're having some technical challenges just to be able to do that.
Can you log, do you have your laptop? Can you log into the Zoom?
Sure.
Are you in the Google Drive as well? Mm-hmm. All right, you may be able to share from your screen.
That's what I'm having her log in for. Yep.
Do you see me?
She's in the waiting room.
Let me in.
See if you can, see if you can share your screen.
Okay, I don't want,
Yeah, it's the presentation, the first
yeah.
one.
Share. Looks like I can, so,
Okay, so then, all right. So
Which-
you can pull up that presentation,
which one?
the one that Michael Ray, I thought, told you about.
It's in,
Ah, come on.
it said Lunenburg, and then I had today's date. Where is it? Oh, there
here.
it is. Yep.
Okay. Share.
And again, to anyone joining us, we're having some technical challenges, so now we are. Excellent. All right, and Renee, as we go through this, some slides I'm going to skip through pretty quick.
Okay.
So again, good evening, and what we're going to go through right now is this is an update from the Lunenburg Municipal Building Design Committee on just where we're at in the process. Excuse me. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. All right.
At the top, at the Google Docs.
So one of the things that we are, the Lunenburg Municipal Building Design Committee, the charge has been expanded to include identifying, consolidating the needs of town, school, and community uses. And as we've taken this approach, what we've come up with is in our process, we identified kind of 3 solutions on how we're going to reuse all the buildings to better meet the needs of the community. We've kind of broken this down into phases, and I'm going to refer tonight to phase 1 and phase 2. And phase 3, if we can stay on the next slide. And so we've broken this process down into phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. The best way to explain this is that phase 1 is the building of a new town hall. Phase 2 is a renovation of the existing town hall into a meeting house, and the renovation of the Ritter building into school administration offices. Phase 3, which is not before us this evening, is a repurposing of the TC Passios building. With some community-related functions there. What we're looking at on this diagram to orient you to, and I know it's a little small for folks at home, but we're looking at Town Hall. Thank you. We're looking at Town Hall, identified as a meeting house. The 8C refers to accessible parking. And then across the street, where we currently have the Ritter Memorial Building, we're depicting the existing building. To the left of the existing building is the new Town Hall. South of that, we're showing a potential location for a PAC studio. And we also are identifying the parking areas along 30 School Street and the existing parking area along Lancaster Ave/Leominster Road. Next slide, please. So in this process, working with the architects, what we've done is this is looking at the kind of layout, and really it's looking at adjacencies of who needs to be next to who, and how we are kind of programming the space. Behind all of this is a space needs analysis in which the committee worked for several months, a couple of years ago, to work with all the key stakeholders, all the end users of the building, to assess and identify their space needs. We did that with an architectural firm to kind of vet those needs, all of those requests, to really get to a solid number of what everyone would need. And so what this adjacency diagram just depicts is kind of, as we think about this layout, what everything is. The ACE program is part of the school district. It is a program that is targeted towards 18 through roughly 22-year-olds who need additional services, life skills training after high school and before they embark on their life journey. Next slide, please. And this is just showing the upper floor of what this would look like and some adjacencies, but we're going to get through some real diagrams here. Next slide. So we're going to go through what we call a program axiom, which is looking at kind of the flow. So the middle building here, again, is the Ritter building, and the left section is the existing Ritter building. What we see on the right, the strangely shaped building, this is the new town hall. So what we're depicting here is the lower floors of Ritter. This would be the location for the ACE program. Next slide. And what this slide is depicting is the rest of that first floor of the Ritter building, which would be the continuation of those school district offices. Next slide, please. This now shows the first floor of the new town hall. And so we see that the intention here is to have a side entrance into the new town hall, have a front entrance into the new town hall, and to have these two buildings connected. They are uniquely different buildings. It is not one large building, but it is two distinctively different buildings that simply connect. Next slide. And this just identifies the second floor of Ritter, identifying that all of Ritter will be purposed or programmed for school-related uses. And next slide, please. And this identifies that the town hall, new town hall, will also second floor be purposed for municipal, non-school town municipal uses. Next slide, please. So this is just a rough layout. We're going to quickly kind of get through this, but this is a rough layout that really just kind of, again, reiterates what we've done before. It shows some of these floor plans, but we do have some floor plan slides coming that show the school offices, again, lower floor ACE program. So in this connection, and I want to draw your attention to this connection area right above the area that says town clerk. So there's a grade difference in terms of grade being, kind of ground level. There's a difference between where the current basement of the Ritter building sits versus where the first floor of the new town hall sits. So what we have is a transition hallway to be compliant with accessible requirements. As you come out of the existing Ritter building into the new town hall, it's going to be somewhat of a ramp up. And what we see going into the town clerk, we see a divide here, so that way the building is one floor, and it is a level floor. But again, there's a ramp up or down, depending on which way you're walking, as it goes from building to building. Next slide. And so as we look at the upper floor, again, it's just depicting, again, more school uses and kind of what these town functions are. But we're going to spend a little bit of time on this next slide that we have coming up. So if we can enlarge this as best we can and still capture the key of what's here, it may be helpful to go from side to side. Let's start on the Ritter side. So what we're looking at in programming right now, and again, I'm going to step back and make a couple comments here. We have some meetings tomorrow morning with the town staff to go over these floor plans, so that way we can make additional changes and modifications based on their feedback. So the intention here is that when you come into the school district offices, that you'll come into the current entrance on the side of Ritter. This will be an accessible entrance. The bathrooms identified by T's will remain in the current location. And what we have in the current land use area, this is where the superintendent office would be, as well as several other programs. Into the basement of the Ritter building is where the ACE program will be. Part of those requirements are to have a common meeting area, to have that kind of kitchen area where the students can learn some of those life skills. We have, and again, offices for their meetings. And then MEP, this refers to mechanical, electrical, plumbing. This is basically your mechanical room in the building. This is the current mechanical room, and this would remain in the buildings. Now, if we can just go out a little bit and look at the town hall side. So the town hall, So what we have identified here is that we have the tax collector, assistant treasurer office, And again, I'm looking going from north to south or top to bottom. So the front doors along Mass Ave, as you come in those front doors, you'd have the tax collector office, assistant treasurer, accountant. Across the hall, you'd have the town accountant and the payroll clerks. Again, staff feedback will make modifications to this plan. We know that there is interest in this being a combined office. There will be some changes here. This also just generally depicts, what we're squeezing in here and what we're making work. So the first floor, we expect most people are probably going to enter the building from the parking lot area, and so that would be the side entrance. So when you come in that side entrance, you have the assessor's office, you have the town clerk. You have public bathrooms, and then again, in this area, we have IT areas. As we look at this again, we know that there's going to be some changes. We have noted like a vault that's on an exterior wall. That's going to move to the interior. We already have a request from the tax collector and town accountant to kind of swap locations with the back of the building. So that way, when you come in that side entrance, you have kind of hit their office first, town clerk, and then would take a left to hit some of those, the assessor's office. But again, there will be some changes coming to this. We're just presenting where we are currently at in the process.
Yep,
Yep,
do you want
absolutely.
to wait till the end? The transaction counter?
Yeah, so one of the key things that was in the planning process was to ensure that these offices have transaction counters. So a transaction counter is when you currently go to the tax collector's office, they have a window. That's called a transaction counter. When you go to the town clerk office, they have a window. That's called a transaction counter. And so the expectation is that there will be transaction counters put into the hallway, so that way it's clear that where people can go to get business conducted at.
Okay, because one is shown here with the admin assistant for data collector, but like tax collector doesn't list. I don't know if that's an oversight or if that's true.
I would say that we're generally providing, what I'm doing today is generally providing an update on kind of where we're at in the process. But yes, there are things that will be modified. The final presentation on this to the board will be on the 4th of February. This is an interim update.
Okay. And are these offices, they're not necessarily to scale?
They are.
They are? Oh, okay.
They are. The offices are actually to scale. This is an actual real layout, but we know that some of the labeling is going to move. For example, as we look at this and say the accounts clerk, that really will be an office for the treasurer. And across the way where we see that we have accounts payable, we know that the town accountant also needs an office. So there will be some modifications. Next slide. And then you have the second floor. So when you come up from the second floor, this is where a lot of the functions that currently happen at Ritter will be. And this is where we have the Board of Health. In the area that we have is admin assistant with transaction counter. This is referring to the building commissioner. This is currently Lisa Normandin area. We have office for building inspector, and then the land use and conservation. One of the requests was to create like a bullpen, so that way some of these functions that currently already interact regularly can continue to do that. And then one of the things that was important in the building areas in particular is that they're going over plans, and so it was critical that we include enough space for there to be those tables for plans. Some of the rooms that are unlabeled, middle of the building has an elevator next to a stairwell. We have a utility closet there, and then also we are showing some bathrooms, some building mechanical type rooms. We see a break room / copy area, and again, there will be additional changes to this slide. And then, what we have in the connector here is we have offices along the connector, so that way we don't have any wasted space. We have the Veterans Office, a Veterans Affairs Office, which is currently at Ritter. And then there's a couple of things that we have added in here that currently don't exist. One of them being an office for the zoning board. We know that that's somewhat of a function, not somewhat, that is a function that Lisa currently performs, but we are trying to be mindful of future-proofing these concepts. Future-proofing is meeting the needs of now while anticipating the needs of tomorrow. When we go across into the existing Ritter building, one of the great things is that the hallway size shrinks. So the hallways, instead of being this really large hallway that we currently have with somewhat small offices, we have more of a standard office, a standard hallway with larger offices. And again, these are the functions that currently exist in the TC Passios building that would be relocated to the Ritter building. Next slide, please. So the meeting house. So the town hall will become a meeting house, and I want to talk about the lower floor and then get into the upper floors. So one of the things that we did not see in the new town hall or Ritter building are meeting rooms. Part of this was a deliberate decision by the committee that we wanted to minimize that largely this will be an office building complex at the new town hall and the school administrative offices, and that with it being a larger building, it will be costly. I wouldn't say very costly, but it will cost money to heat. When you have individuals into a building for evening meetings, it's not necessary to heat a building of that size, and town hall has a much smaller footprint, and again goes back to our historical roots of being a meeting houses in New England. As we look at the lower floor, so what we see is you come in the front door. So to the right, to orient you to the map, to the right is the front door of the building. You come in the front door and you have the staircase to your right. And what we have are 3 conference rooms. Conference room B would currently be where the town clerk's office is now, as well as the first floor copy room. A conference room A would be where the existing treasurer, tax collector's offices, town accountant office, payroll office is. This would become the second conference room on the first floor. We also see public bathrooms, and so we have a current bathroom identified, a second bathroom created, and then what is currently the assessor's office, the smaller portion of that office would become the conference room, and what is now the assessor's office would essentially become a bathroom. On the second floor of Town Hall, or the upper floor, you'd walk into what is a gallery space. So currently when you come into the second floor of Town Hall, you're met by the offices of the executive assistant, as well as our website person. And this is the path that we all take, or the clock winders take, to get up into the to the clock. And so this would become a gallery space, and again have that access. We remove what is currently the town manager's office and the HR office and expand the size of what will be the hearing room, which is what we're all familiar with on the second floor of Town Hall. We have the cable access control room that will remain where it currently is, and then we have a restroom facility up here on the second floor that would remain, although the size may shrink. We also will, part of the vision here is to add in an elevator, not a lift, so that way we modernize the building. And the intent here is to have a building that on the exterior looks like it pretty much looks today, but that when you walk in the door, it is a fully renovated building that is modern and new. We've also kept a couple things I want to focus on is potential, again, future-proofing was part of the concept here. We have an existing office right next to the stage of Town Hall, that we would retain that as an office space. There's no current use for that, but it would be retained as an office space. And if we fast forward 20, 30, 40 years into the future, it provides us with the flexibility of turning conference room C, if needed, into more offices, or re-envisioning what we can do with what we call Office A. Next slide. So one of the things, and we're going to, next slide, please. We're going to go through these ones a little more quickly. One of the things, if we can talk about the Ritter Building. Ritter Building is a historic building. One of the things that we look at, that the architect really focused on, was all the cool architectural features of Ritter. The committee identifies that the stairs that used to be here that were removed are essentially a wound on the building. And so part of what we're also looking at is how do we remedy this wound, so to speak. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So if we stop here for a moment, what the architect went over with us is in their process of looking at kind of what will this new building look like. And we went over a series of thoughts in their mind process. So this rendering kind of depicts somewhat replicating the existing town hall. It is not advised to make new buildings look old. It is advised based on, again, the standards for historic preservation or additions to historic buildings are established by the Department of the Interior. And they are the standards that make communities eligible for tax credits, not communities, developers eligible for tax credits. Obviously, Lunenburg is not going to get tax credits, but those are the standards that are used nationwide, is to have new buildings when they're added or additions to existing historic buildings, that the language says distinctively different, that they need to look distinctively different. So again, the architect kind of went through a couple different renderings here. Next slide, please. This one kind of has that feel of, I think they use like First National Bank of Lunenburg. It's a little bit much. Next slide, please. The committee ultimately landed on this. We did like this presentation where you have some features that really has this forward-facing building that along Mass Ave that very clearly identifies it as being the seat of government. Utilizing some of those features, architectural features we see on our buildings here in the center of town, but also having a covered walkway that kind of wraps underneath that. Next slide, please. The architect also proposed this concept to us, which would again not have those large pillars. Next slide, please. And this was a rendering that the architect provided to us, not a rendering, it's a photo. The architect provided to us of some concepts of what this walkway could look like as it wraps around the building. And again, open, natural sunlight, so that way we're not creating these shady areas. Really kind of nice look to it. Next slide, please. And this is from a project that they performed, I believe it was in Concord, Mass, onto existing property where they did a renovation there. And they were just kind of illustrate kind of how that walkway kind of looked. Next slide, please. This was another rendering the architect kind of identified for us just to kind of get some thoughts on. Next slide, please. It's going to be a little quicker. And this was ultimately what they did the CAD design off of, which was this presentation. Next slide, please. So these are the CAD renderings of again, this is not the facade that the municipal building design is going to work with, but they just give you an illustration of, although this is an awkward shaped, I don't want to say awkward, although it's not a square building or a rectangular building, that from the front side, it will look pretty rectangular. What we have is that connecting bridge, which is really a connecting hall. And on the back side of this is where we also have offices. Next slide, please. And then this is just another depiction of what it looks like straight on. So as you're looking at the front door straight on, to kind of give you a concept of how this could look. Next slide, please. And this is that side view. So as you're coming up Mass Ave, or rather turning down School Street, this is just a depiction of what the side could look like. Some of the feedback that the committee already had is that side entrance needs to be a little more prominent because it will be essentially a more prominent entrance into the building. Next slide, please. And this is looking at it from the back side as you come in from the parking lot and approach the building. This is the concept. Some of the things that we're going to see in future presentations are the parking lot area, the full site plan. The intention here is to have a parking lot that has solar panels on it and a covered walkway all the way to the building from the parking lot with solar panels. And then that walkway changes in design and look as it touches and is on the building. And this provides a couple of cool features for the community where, when people park, you don't have to worry about, all the umbrellas and water. And then also when we have those community events that occur in the town green, that it gives us the opportunity for people to be able to get out of the rain if that were to occur, and just becomes that walkable way. And I think this is the end of the modeling here, if I'm correct. So if we wouldn't mind stop sharing. So the next steps, or the next parts of this process, are the committee had a lot of comments about that presentation. In the process, creating exterior designs in CAD, it is time-consuming. CAD is a software that the architects use to design this modeling. It is time-consuming, and so we expect that as we have an update coming in the middle of January and then ultimately in February, that we will see renderings that are more in line with what the committee would like to see. And then again, what we're doing this week, tomorrow specifically, meeting with the department heads, all the individuals that will be the key stakeholders and users of the building, to make sure that we're making those kind of modifications of adjacencies, of space uses, et cetera. And then we're going to provide that feedback to the architectural team, and we will have a revised plan on the 22nd. We'll review that. We'll make some more modifications with the intent that the plan that we review on the 3rd of February will be our largely complete plan that we will then present to the board the following day with the architectural team.
So, are you worried at all about parking? Having enough parking for everyone working in Ritter and the new town hall, as well as public? I mean, we're talking about school, town.
Yeah, no. So we have one of the things about the architectural preservation district that we created, which this building will be in, is that parking can be within a half a mile if it's within the district. So one of the features, even Town Hall right now, we know that Town Hall, the actual parcel that Town Hall sits on is not much bigger than the building. So we have about roughly a couple feet around the building itself that is the full parcel of the building, and so there is no on-site parking here. And so part of it is that when staff use the existing town hall, we have the street parking. We also have access here to the parking lots for the Boys and Girls Club. We have access to the parking for the senior center. And then at the new town hall, 30 School Street is really important. The existing parking lot that's in front of the Historical Society, we have an easement to them, and so we need to make sure that we provide adequate parking to them. But the existing calculations, and the architects are going to work on this, we feel confident that if we look at the existing parking needs of Ritter Town Hall, we look at the calculations, there's confidence that we can utilize there will be an expansion on 30 School Street of the parking lot, but we have confidence that there's plenty of space there, and it doesn't eat up the entire parcel. And so having green space there still is very, very possible. We'll see those renderings, I believe, on the 22nd of the month that show the full site plan with how that's going to look. All right, any additional?
No, I'm curious what the department heads and folks will say, because it looks like there's a lot of offices, walking through offices to get to another office kind of setup right now.
Yeah, I think that some of the bullpens and the way that those floor plans are identified, that's definitely where staff feedback at this point is mission critical. The committee overwhelmingly accepts and recognizes that we can't get to a final plan without staff feedback.
That was a big part of last night's meeting.
It was. That where we are at now, we can't move without hearing from staff. And I did meet with, it was helpful for me to come today and meet with the assessors, not the assessors, excuse me, with the town accountant and the tax collector, because in our depictions, we show them as being separate. And I think that the feeling from them is that they really want to stay together and what we call that bullpen. And so we know that there's going to be some changes here to the actual layout. I think where the committee feels confident about is that we have elevators in a good location in the building, we have stairwells in a good location, that the building is oriented well, that we have a good way to flow through the building. And so now it's finalizing where everyone really needs to be in the building.
Is the footprint overall what you expected or what your goal was? Because it looks big.
It has grown. So it has grown. The existing footprint of the Ritter building is 6,500 square feet. The footprint of the new town hall is 5,000 square feet. It is a 10,000 square foot building as currently depicted. Now, based on our calculations, and I want to reiterate that something we've been saying all along is that we are trying to impose on ourselves a $15 million budget, and we are using a cost of $600 a square foot. Current office space is renovated closer to $420 a square foot, and so we are overestimating on this cost. That way, we are not going to find ourselves in a position where we think that, hey, this is what the cost should be, and then we find out it's significantly more. We are targeting that higher cost knowing that the cost will be lower. But even if you do the math on refinishing all of this, the current estimates are about $11 million. But we know that elevators are way more than $600 a square foot. They're closer to like $3,000 a square foot. So they're a lot more expensive, and these depictions do show 3 elevators, and those are very costly adds. Part of this process as well is it's more than just the architectural renderings that we have in this. We've hired structural engineers, we've hired mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, and what has been happening is a structural analysis of this building and all these buildings, so that way we have a really good understanding of what needs to happen in order to make this plan work. So that way we're not just showing pretty pictures, but behind all of this, we have some really hard data on how to make this happen. And it's a little bit beyond what normally occurs in a schematic design phase. That's usually a construction phase. But it's the intent of the committee to go for funding off of a schematic design. And so we want to make sure that we are being as thorough as possible. And we will have a good report that comes out of this about what, if we want to turn this into office space and have people here, what we need to do to make this building work.
And your cost estimates are not just for the addition, the town hall addition, but also the renovations required of Ritter?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. All right. Any other thoughts, comments, questions, feedback?
Was there analysis done at any point about what the prior square footage requirement was, let's say 10 or 20 years ago, and what it is now? Because I'm looking at every one of these offices wasn't here 20 years ago or 25 years ago. They were all built, and so we've really encroached on the building, and the needs of the town has grown. And since you made it a very strong point, and I agree with the point, that we want to future-proof this, I would hate to see us build a building only to have in 10 years saying, wow, we've outgrown this building.
Yep.
That would seem to be not a good place. So if you could talk about it, are the square footage you're using, is that existing? And is there place for growth? And is there more room on that lot for extended growth if you needed it?
Yeah, so in the process, we have a spreadsheet that identified what the current square footage is of every single office. And then we had what was their requests. So we had the department request of the kind of square footage they all wanted. And that was what we really kind of targeted. And looking at the request of what they were asking for, we spent a lot of time on the committee really challenging that. For example, we had one of the things from the school department initially was, I believe it was about 4,000 or 5,000 square feet for storage of records. And our pushback was digitize. Why do we need that much square footage for storage? And so there was some pushback on some of that. And then we also kind of use industry standards of what do most offices use. We've evaluated and measured how much storage currently exists and how much of that's going to be replicated. So I will say that it was a rather lengthy process, but we have a very detailed spreadsheet that kind of walks through 3 iterations of us kind of evaluating current versus request, what the needs are, and then also adding in future things. Like one of the things we've added in here is a historical office, historical commission office. That doesn't currently exist. We've added in the zoning board office that doesn't currently exist. We've added in, as you've noticed on the town hall side, a couple different offices that have no end user to them. And so I think that there's a confidence on the committee that even if the town were to grow, add another, and I can come up with a certain percentage here, but have a need for about 5 to 6 other offices, that it doesn't require any building additions to achieve that. There may need to be some modifications to buildings after adding about 5 or 6 more offices, but that there won't be a need for additions to it. Am I answering your question?
Kind of. I mean, again, so I will use the example of the public safety building, which was built what was it, 2004?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
2003, and now they're running out of office space, but it came with an area to build out, which they are now asking to be built out because the town has grown and the police force has grown, and, we had that planned into the future. What I'm asking is, has any analysis been done of how many people worked for the town 30 years ago, 25 years ago? And therefore, given that rate of growth, because Lunenburg is a fast-growing community, it's one of the fastest-growing communities in this region. And, have we slated in enough space to say, okay, people, when they get in there, are gonna have lots of space, but there's room to put more desks, there's room, or are we allocating square footage of what is currently in there, so we're gonna take what we have, put it in a new place with the same square footage, so that growth is going to be very difficult. That is my question.
Okay. Growth has been anticipated on the front end. So for example, currently the tax collector, town accountant, and in the finance area downstairs, they're occupying about 760 square feet. We are planning for them to have closer to 1,100 square feet. It's a little over 1,000. And that way, as they grow, and that was one of the questions we had, that there's room for that growth to happen. Even the town clerk office right now, as depicted in here, will be larger than her current office is. So in this, I will say it was very important to us to plan for some of that, but we have not done analysis from 30 years ago. Comparing it to the current. And I will say that we can somewhat take that on. Some of the challenges are, like looking at the school department as an example, the student body population has not increased in the last 20 years. It has decreased, but their administrative offices have like tripled. And so some of these things may not be crystal clear when you're looking at just a numerical, how many people are you serving, because there are other mandates that require departments to grow beyond how many customers you're servicing.
Well, that's my point. I mean, and full well, over the past year with the employment challenges, how many people, the employees, the department heads, the town managers, the interim town manager, people on this board have said, we are overtaxing our staff, that we really need to add staff. That has been a clear mandate to add more staff. That's today.
Yep.
And I want to make sure if we go into a building that we have, again, I think you used the word several times, future-proof, and we need to do that. And I know it's a good question because I got Mr. Roy.
Yeah,
Mr. Roy.
I was going to affirm that that's a good question, and I want to make a note that I think it's a good perhaps way to approach it. I think we should approach that question in as many ways as we possibly can when we present it to the public, and I think that might be a good analysis, kind of taking a walk back in time, doing an analysis on, what did we have for employees 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, what did we have for square footage, square footage per employee, and just kind of do that analysis. I think why I rose is I think you're going to find that the plans that were presented for you will be an expansion of that square footage. I think you're going to find that on just about every case, I mean, I'm sure there's some exceptions, that the planning department is, we've given that office much more margin, I call it. Room for growth, room to move, if you will, room for tables where you can sit down with an applicant or something that comes in with plans. Same thing with Conservation Commission. I think also that one of the things that we're going to see in the building, from my standpoint, from my view, is some efficiency as well. So co-locating the Conservation Commission with the Planning Board, for example, there's some efficiencies that can be built in there. We don't need to have two tables. We don't need to have a table in the Conservation Commission office or table, perhaps, right? We can share some of those things. So I think you're going to find that, I think that analysis would be very good to do. I appreciate the suggestion. But I think you're going to find that that there's some real significant future proofing. If I could just comment one other thing, sorry to.
No. Mr. Roy is here, a member of the committee.
Yeah, I should have said, Greg Roy, 105 Chestnut Street. I'm a citizen at large on the Lunenburg Municipal Design Committee. And thanks for your time this evening. We're working for you, so to speak, in the town, but through you.
Look at the cameras when you say that.
Yeah.
For us, for the whole town.
One of the things that Michael Ray said in his presentation was that we're really trying to, on both the Ritter and this building, we're trying to keep the historical character of the building. But when you walk inside, we really want people to be wowed at the work that was done. We want there to be a dramatic change to the inside, so that when people walk in, they say, wow, this is a nice new building. But we still have the character of the center of Lunenburg. That's really a goal. And one of the things that I liked about the architect's presentation on this building was a change to the handicapped, finally, a change to the handicapped accessibility. If you know, we didn't point it out on the sketch, but we have built in handicapped accessibility to the front door. And we've built in a modernization of an elevator. Elevators, as we said, are expensive, but we think it's really important, that folks can enter into, whether it's disabled folks or parents with strollers or any other thing you can think of, that it's important for those folks to be able to enter through the front door like everybody else. And I think that was a real significant change. And the same thing would occur on the new town hall building as well. So, and the ramps and things that we're building into those. Appreciate the comments, and thanks for letting me talk. Appreciate it.
Hey, Greg, don't go anywhere yet, just in case I need your help here. Any other questions you have, or?
I don't have any additional questions. I did see the meeting last night. I think it was a well thought out presentation. I think the committee had, some great questions and inputs, and it's clear how much time you guys have put into it. So I'm excited to continue to see it flesh out, and really excited to hear staff input as well.
All right. So for the committee, one of the things that's important in the process is I think that the Municipal Building Design Committee, because we've been working together now for so many years, that we really have gelled, I think, as a group. And we have differences of opinions. I will say that. But we do find those sticking points, and we vote on those sticking points and move forward. Also, these are meetings where any member of the public can participate in. And that's been an important part of this, is that, sometimes when we have to kind of get the consensus of the committee at those moments, we will say, hey, all right, we've got to give clear direction here. We need to go through the committee members. But it is one of the meetings that you can participate in along the way. Members of the public last night, it was really great to have the engagement, asking the questions directly to the architects, expressing viewpoints, that, we really wanted this to be as transparent of a process as possible, so that way it is a compromise solution here, that, we can walk away from this all feeling good, that we worked with each other and worked hard. And one of the members, when I spoke with the architectural team this morning to recap our meeting yesterday, one of the things that they commented back to me about was how wonderful it was to meet with us and seeing, really they called it democracy in action. And last night they thanked us for the representing our community members so well. And I will say, Greg, I think you hit it on the head, lightning in a bottle. I think we have a really great team that we're working with.
Yeah, I think we've really got a good architect. I mean, they seem,
I'll thank both,
proof's in the pudding.
both of you and the rest of your committee for your time. I do have one procedural request as somebody who watches them after the fact, is that if you watch these on your meetings on YouTube or Facebook and not on Zoom when you're live, there is absolutely no way of knowing who's on the call of your committee, ever. And unless they speak, I don't know they're on the call. And I would request, like we see the panel, the tiled effect of Zoom, I would ask that people, people on the committee put on their cameras, and that the default view be the whole tile view, so I know who's attending the meeting. Otherwise, as a member of the public, I don't know if the chair is there alone and there's one other person. I don't know if the full committee is there. And if you missed the very beginning, where they, introduce, sometimes I don't even think that happens, by the way, that everybody's there. So that's just one question, one comment I would have, if you guys could do that, so it makes it clear who's on this.
I know we spend a lot of time screen sharing in these meetings.
Well, screen sharing is fine. But at some point when there's nobody's sharing, I'm not saying at every single moment you want to see the tile. What I'm saying is that there's never a moment that you see, unless they speak, somebody else, like I see Greg, because he's a very active participant in it. So I see him, and I see his name come up, and I see his, most of the times he has the camera on too.
Yeah.
But other members, I don't know whether they're there. Some people aren't. Some people are better listeners and they have behind-the-scenes comments. They're not active in the meeting.
Okay.
Just be nice to know who was at the meeting.
All right, yeah, I will admit I haven't gone back and watched many of our meetings.
Well, I don't know.
I only watched the ones I missed. I only
I don't
watched the
blame
ones I
you.
missed.
And on my, I mean, I control the Zoom in them, but on my
Yeah.
side, it's tile, so I'll have to work with Heidi
Yeah.
to figure out how to make sure it's just, because on my view at home, it's this.
Right.
So I'll
Right.
have to make sure I talk to
But that's
Heidi to
interesting
see
feedback, yeah.
what
I don't
the-
know what our meetings look like on recording, actually, trying to think about it.
Ours look like this because it's
Like
recorded
that?
here.
No, on,
Like the
Oh,
YouTube.
ours are,
YouTube.
yeah, but ours are
Oh,
recorded
yeah.
and they're done live here, so
Yeah,
nobody
it's
sees
different.
the Zoom. We're not
Oh,
recording the Zooms. of
yeah,
our-
they're getting it.
but like
Okay.
school committee.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback. I'll
No, that's
figure out
good.
what
That's
the
good.
issue is. That's good.
Yeah. Challenges of Zoom.
Yeah, I
Well,
think,
you know, to that point, and to Michael, the first meetings we had were late 2019. We did meet this committee before COVID, so we had, I think,
I've read
one
about that in
meeting.
books.
Yeah. We met one meeting, one in-person meeting with the first architect that we selected, and then we had March shutdown of 2020. So it was.
No, it's challenging, there's no doubt. I mean,
Yeah.
I-
No, your point is.
This
well
group
taken.
has done a lot of work.
Yeah, yeah,
I
it's
mean,
great.
the architect.
Yep.
they've
Phenomenal.
Done a lot.
Yeah. from the
Oh, this current
first
architect,
time,
they
yeah.
really have pedaled to the metal, like, you know, yeah, so anyway, it's been
Excellent.
good.
all right, any additional comments? Okay, so what, and I know we have this coming up next. So one of the things that occurred in this process is that when the committee was thinking of phasing this out, so that way we can have those areas that we all can have kind of common agreement to, and then and have that as phase 1 and 2. And again, part of the vision here is that minimal interruption to staff in place. Naturally, when you're building a building and building connections into that building, it's going to impact some offices in Ritter. However, minimal interruption, so that way most people can remain in place. It minimizes the need for alternative locations. And then once the new town hall is built, it gives us the ability to take everyone out of these buildings, put them in the new buildings, and then renovate the spaces. So again, part of this is being mindful of construction costs as well. So what remains is TC Passios, and they are the other part of this as well as the Brooks House, but Brooks House is separate. So in the TC Passios building, what we had planned was that it would remain as a community use. The vision was to tear down the middle wing, the north wing, which is closest to the high school, and to largely leave the first wing of the building. So that way we have the gym for the voting, for the uses that all go on in the gym, which it is utilized by several groups in town. We have the food pantry, that community potential kitchen space, the cafeteria, and then that front kind of left hallway we had envisioned as being a good space for some of the town clerk voting machine storage for a future home for PAC. What came about from our facilities manager, facilities director, Chris Ruth, is he has expressed concerns about the boiler system at TC Passios and whether or not that building that will last the several years that we need it to. He's also expressed concern about the roof. And so the real user here that gets impacted the most is PAC. Because if that building becomes unusable, relocating a food pantry, we envision is an easier task than relocating PAC. Relocating where we vote at will be easier than relocating PAC. And so in this vision, you saw that we are incorporating a standalone kind of building for PAC. This is a cost add that by it being a standalone building, PAC has requested 2,700 square feet. They're going to need more than that to account for the mechanical rooms, the hallways, the bathrooms. And so it's going to be a standalone building with a price tag of we estimate not building it out just a white box, a structure with a roof and building mechanicals for PAC to then fill in. It still has about a $2 million price tag on it. And so we've looked at how we can incorporate PAC and move them from phase 3 into phase 1 or 2. The view of the committee is to keep PAC in phase 3. But I wanted to bring this to the attention of the select board because I think that even though the committee has a clear mindset I want to invite PAC to provide a presentation tonight on what their requests are, so that way we as a board can be clear in our guidance back to the Municipal Building Design Committee of do we like this idea of a standalone building? Do we think that PAC should be relocated somewhere else on town property? Do we want to try to find a way to incorporate them into this building footprint? Which again, our view is adding in that kind of square footage becomes a 3-story building, which there's a lot of hesitance to anything that size being in the center of town. But I want to invite PAC up to give a presentation on kind of what their space needs are, because I do think it's important that we find a way to figure out how to accommodate some of those needs. Steve.
Happy Epiphany, just in case. I wasn't sure why I was invited here, so I put...
Hopefully you have at least an introduction about why now.
I have a flexible presentation.
Excellent.
But if actually what you're really looking for is why do we need the space we're asking for and how would we use it, that's pretty much what I put together. So if that works for you...
It does.
Actually, Joe, what... Oh, there you are. Don't do that to me. Joe did bring copies, but I wasn't sure what we were quite going to do, so...
If I may ask before we get going here, do we have an electronic version of this that either the booth has or that you can...
The booth has it.
Okay, so the booth can screen share?
I hope so. Can we set my presentation up, please?
I have 3 copies as well.
Okay.
And they're stapled on the wrong side.
I'm left-handed.
Most people are in their right mind are left-handed.
I mean, that's debatable.
I don't believe it.
Pretend we're in Tel Aviv. There we go.
All right, so we're waiting for the booth to try to share this presentation. Okay, excellent. Is it possible, I don't know how we control the back screen here, but we can see it. Thank you, PAC.
Oh, that's the wrong one. Okay.
If you can get the right one, I'll start. They have copies anyway. So assuming this was to try and justify our existence, our need for space, and some of the numbers, I took the presentation that we'd actually made at our meeting to Michael Ray and reordered some of it and added some information to it. So about half of this is the same and about half of it is surprise time. So PAC is a town department and we deserve equal consideration is where we start from. Because all the work that was being done and we were the people left out in the cold, unfortunately, which it was brought up time and time again, but usually right at the end and far down the line. We consider we are excellent value to the town because we're self-funded for salaries, wages, and equipment, and we believe we provide valuable services to the town. Interim studio, which strives to be a disaster and succeeds most of the time, is inadequate, limits creativity, limits technology. For the last few years, when we've bought equipment, we've had to buy it 2 considerations. One is it's not a permanent installation, to say nothing of the lead and asbestos and TC passios. But, thank you.
Sorry.
There's no problem. But we knew we would end up somewhere else at some time. So it had to be stuff that we were not investing a lot of money in and had to be movable at the right time.
And you had to make sure it was waterproof.
Yeah, well, actually, we didn't make sure it was waterproof. However, I walked in to meet with Joe on Friday last week, and as we walked to the studio, we found a ceiling tile lying in the corridor and about 5 more tiles above it. So even though we've moved into the part of the building with nominally a better roof, seems like maybe it isn't that much better. So we reported that to Chris Ruth. One thing I'd like to be clear on, because I know sometimes this is not clear, We do have an enterprise fund. The franchise fees are governed under Section 622 of the Cable Act of 1984, which I'm sure you all knew. But that money is restricted for providing cable services for the town on behalf of public and education and government, and they're restricted for that purpose. This is money that actually PAC brings into the town. So what I believe Michael Ray said right at the end there was, you give us a box with the functioning pieces, and we do the inside of it, because that's where all our equipment, we have to put rails up and things like that. That's what that money is for. And one thing we have done through the Treasurer's Office is invested that fund, and the first year it was invested, I believe it brought in about $36,000, which is extremely valuable, because every year we go by, inflation moves the cost of both labor and equipment to do with what we need. The cable companies are reluctant to give any more money, and our franchise fees are going down, maybe around about 3 or 4% average per year. We're actually doing quite well compared with a lot of other public access around Massachusetts. Some of them are much closer to the 8%, which is significant. We're also a small town in the scheme of things, and consequently have a small budget. It never ceases to amaze me what we manage to actually do with that. We've just started in the budget process in PAC, and we are just reaching the point where our franchise fees are just enough to pay the operations of PAC as we run it at the moment. If we need any capital expenses, and we have to have some ready, if our principal server, the Castus in the room back there, were that to fail, that's up to about $20,000 to replace it. That would now start to be coming out of the enterprise fund, used for its proper purpose. But up until now, we have tried to keep our total operational expenses in line with our franchise fees coming in. So we also have no idea, I've talked to you before about the streaming law. I have absolutely no idea where that stands or where it's going at this point. So that's not one of my slides. So the studio, why the studio is necessary and important. We do a lot of stuff actually in the studio, which given the state of it, we're trying to get the best out of it. We do story time, we do talking baseball. Both of those are put up on a server that's available all through Massachusetts and even beyond, so other public access can take them. And we have, didn't we have one subscriber down in the Caribbean or somewhere?
Yeah, we have them all over the country, but there's over 85 public access stations that take our programs.
And you can use that mic right there. There's a mic on the table.
We currently have over 85 stations that are taking the Talking Baseball. Yeah.
And it's been running for almost 10 years now? Is that about right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're creating this. We also, there's a new program being produced there called Movie Talk. And one of them called Talk of the Town, where either the town manager or the town moderator will be on television and talk about what's going on in the town, what needs to be done. We offer fair political time so politicians can come in, and we will video them professionally, but fair, so everyone gets the same opportunity. If they don't choose to come in, that's up to them, but we do not take sides, if you like. Public service announcements, another one we do. And we use both videographer and public training. If the public wants to use our systems, it is available to them. It has to be supervised, but we would be doing that in the studio. By the way, that implies we do need public access. So wherever we end up, we don't actually need a counter, but we do need ready public access. So, outside productions, we use essentially the same equipment, the switcher and all those pieces. It's the same family that we use for outside productions. So learning to use that in the studio and then going out to do a basketball game or a football game. We cover sports, things like homecoming, graduation, concerts, town meetings. All of these are outside our permanent setup. This is part of our permanent setup. So there's a list there which of the Channel 8 government meetings that are covered. We actually do around about 30 different ones altogether, but this is includes your good selves. So the PAC viewership, Joe gave me this the other day. This is viewership outside of the cable system, and that's because Comcast won't share their data. None of the public access people get the data of who watches the television. So that's hearsay, people who are homebound, people who are not technically savvy. All sorts of people can use it that way. And that was the charter, because in 1984, the internet wasn't very good at that time. So on YouTube, we have 1,114 current subscribers. They added 13 in the last 28 days. We're alive and well. 3,700 views and over 500 hours of viewing. We basically use that as video on demand. So if you miss a meeting, and you can go and find it on there, because that's where they get put up, and you can see them on demand. And it ends up being a permanent archive as well. I have absolutely no idea how YouTube does this, but they keep all this stuff forever and a day.
The 3.7 thousand views is over what period?
1 month.
Oh, a month, okay. Okay.
Oh.
Oh, even less, 28 days.
Well, that's just a lunar month, okay. I just wanted to make sure that, so it's...
Oh, yeah. No, it wasn't just 1 week. No, we used ARPA money to significantly improve the audio in the Bilotta room, and I hope you've noticed when they put this in, the engineer came and stood here and pointed a microphone at the loudspeaker, a thing you must never do because it feeds back, and it didn't. There's technology being used sensibly. So we bring into the town both video and audio technology as best we can to make what we present better.
And I just want to thank you for that as well. I know that one of the challenges that happens with my skin tone compared to the skin tone of others is that sometimes the videos, when they're kind of making those balances, that, the darker skin tones end up being, too dark.
Yep.
And I know that you guys did a camera upgrade to kind of help, just generally, but it also definitely remedied that.
And interestingly, we really appreciated that because it made us pay attention to something we hadn't done a good job of. You brought it to our attention. I hope we fixed it to your satisfaction. And we are now better in the way we can manage, no matter who is sitting up here. So thank you as well. That one works both ways. We do need to manage equipment. We have equipment that goes out. So people going to meetings, they have what they call go-to bags. For the videographers, that has the cameras, the batteries, the SD cards, a tripod, all the bits and pieces. But this all has to be maintained as well. So you can't just expect the batteries to charge themselves. You have to manage, get the right batteries, enough of them, and they're properly charged. In my experience, tripods regularly fall apart, so need to be tightened up and made to work properly. We actually would have a loan program if people want to borrow some of our equipment, citizens of the town. That is allowed, but we don't have a good way of managing it at this point, or a good way of them coming in to actually pick it up and get training. So if we talk about the space, we've, as already raised this evening, the TCP is not going to be usable in a certain period of time. So somehow PAC needs to be able to survive intelligently in fairly soon, by the sound of it. I'm not a building person. I have much more fun with technology. We were asked to reduce the space we'd asked for. Now, just to be fair to us, the reason we asked for 2,700 feet is because we were told we could have 3 classrooms. And 3 classrooms at TCP at 900 square feet each. So we filled the footprint. We'd actually like more. So does every other department in the entire town, one expects. So we based it on that footprint. So some of the way the original plan was laid out was based on the footprint available to us. Can we just go to slide 13, please? That was the original drawing in the previous iteration of all of this. And if you go to slide 14, what we did in the dark blue is we tried to reduce the space as best we could. And some interesting things start to happen when you do that. If you go to the next slide, please, the red shows the savings. Maybe red wasn't the best color to pick for that. And the next slide, please. This is because we have corridors in here. This was an issue for us because we need security so that we can, for instance, bring equipment back late at night, or the public can be coming in later. But just because they get into PAC space and are allowed to do that, they mustn't have access to the rest of the building. So our area must be capable of being properly secured for both our access and public access. So the space summary, which is the next slide, and these are rough numbers, and please understand that when you give us our space, please, when we look at the footprint or the shape of it and where things are, some of these numbers will get adjusted, just like you were talking about, that you're fitting offices into interesting shaped spaces because of the shape of the building. So the Studio 625, that's about the size of where we are at the moment for the trusses and the lighting and everything else. Gives us very little room for cameras and other things down the sides and at the back, but we did an honest job to reduce it as far as we could, yet still have it workable. The control room, 200 square feet. This is the one for the studio. So this is where all the high-tech stuff and the big monitors and everything go. Typically a double glazed or triple glazed window looking into the studio. We need offices for 2 people. We had 100 square feet for each of them. The edit and training space, we need to train people. Videographers have to be able to come in and edit using our equipment. There are 6 videographers. We would have space for 3 in 200 square feet because they're not all doing it at the same time. They're part-timers. We need an equipment room, as you mentioned earlier, to maintain the equipment, for which we put 200 square feet here and ended up with 1,425 square feet. We know some of those are a little on the tight side. One thing we're fairly confident about at the moment, we're not a department that is growing because franchise fees are tending to go down. So we don't need to build in space for 3 more full-time personnel to run the show. So we're slightly different. And the note at the bottom, the red one, says we took the corridors out. We don't have any bathrooms, no reception area, no security for late night access, because we assumed we were going to be integrated somewhere in the rest of the whole picture that was being put together. So that space came out. However, one thing that's been raised more than once is ceiling height. And the studio itself does need ceiling height, so the lights are high enough up that people aren't walking into them. But it's only the studio and typically the control room, which will be co-located, needs a high ceiling. So the rest of our space is regular office type of space. That can be regular ceiling height. Our preference is that it's co-located with the studio. I talked to Joe about this and said, what happens if it's not co-located? And it really would make a lot of things difficult. The other thing that we would really like, and this is very risky to say at this point, being co-located with the meeting rooms is a good thing for us, because then we can use our staff more efficiently, that one person can be videoing more than one room. So if we had 3 conference rooms together, we might call them, what should we call them, A, B, and C, just to pick a random name for them. And we were close by. That would be more efficient for us.
If I can just, I'm sorry, hitting something under the table. If I can just ask for clarity. So with the current plan for this building as a meeting house,
yes,
part of the thought process was, as we were going through this with the TC Passios and kind of going through the cost estimation, there were high costs associated with the distance from the control room to the meeting rooms in terms of wires, cords, et cetera, that would be something that would need to be accessible, potentially replaced. And so there was a certain cost element to that. And I think that part of the goal with having meeting rooms downstairs was knowing that runs from a control room would be smaller. Right. But to be clear, are you saying the entire thing, not just the control room, but that because this is a little different than what you said to me before, that you guys are comfortable being located in this building?
No, I didn't say
that. Okay.
Because we're just saying what works well for us.
Got it.
As I'm sure you remember, there's a slide in here that makes the point that this building is on the creaky side. So putting a studio or even a voiceover studio or anything like that into this building would require special work to make sure that that's capable. Now, the overall principle is if the conference rooms are close together and we are co-located with them, that helps us. We didn't say, and yes, please put us in this place. We have to wait and see, and we will cooperate. Oh, I thought I was getting a reaction.
I just wanted to clarify that there's 2 control rooms we're talking about here.
Thank you.
There's the studio control room and the meeting control room.
Thank you for that clarity.
This one also is the interface to Comcast, runs out of this room. So that's the way it all comes together. I have no idea what else I've got. Okay, if you try to put us in a standalone building, we don't know much about this, but Steve, who's a member of our committee, tried working some numbers to see what would happen. We don't know much about the gas station. We don't even, is that in play, or we don't know?
No, that was a comment I had made to you about have you guys explored, other locations, including 925 Mass Ave.
Right. Well, the problems with standalone, we need more space because we have to put in corridors, mechanical room, bathrooms, all this kind of thing. The rough cost that we were looking at just for a box like that is towards $2 million. That's the empty box. I think that's close to the number you were talking about.
Yes.
Needs parking, needs services, maintenance, internet access, and security. Roughly, we worked out that if we could either afford to do it that way or we could afford to have staff, but we can't do both. So that makes life. Can we put the next slide up and see if it works? You remember this, right? This is the town hall because there was some talking about using some part of the first floor. This actually has a delightful ceiling height, but this would become the town gathering space. But also trying to do anything where you're trying to record audio is not going to work in a building like this. You can do a lot of things. You basically would require another floor to be added to it. It really is just on the video now. But
Interesting use of fonts, by the way.
so
And the sound
I can
effect.
feel the
Yeah,
creak.
the
I can feel
sound
the creaks
effects?
in the fonts. Yeah, beside whoever is making this noise.
Yeah, that's in his presentation, the sound
Yeah,
Oh, gotcha.
you had, you thought they were real?
would
10 demerits for that.
would I do such a thing? So
No, never, Steve.
the issues of parking and power and air conditioning and night security, all of these come up again. However, it would be close to the conference rooms, as we discovered, and close to the Bellotto control room. So that's what I threw together, not knowing exactly what you were looking for. I hope that's helpful to all of you. And I hope you have some really good news for us in the near term. Any questions?
I do.
Oh, dear.
So,
Thank you.
wow. Have you done any survey of towns of our size about what they are using and what their facilities are like? And just as a we love to compare things in this town, so I figured I'm going to ask you that.
We've made a number of visits to other studios, but the ones we've visited have tended to be larger. So Fitchburg, Leominster.
Those are cities, but I
Reading.
mean, yeah, so I'm saying towns.
Right.
Any towns our size?
Well, yeah. We haven't done a small one. I think we're one of the. But that's a big one, right? They've got budgets like 4 times ours, these people.
Yeah, and I think they also have Verizon. Reading, we did Reading. I don't know
we
if
did
that's a
Reading.
comparable size,
Oh, yeah, we have done
perhaps.
Acton, not here.
Acton,
Same size.
Acton.
Acton are really struggling at the moment. They've lost so much funding that they are down to 1.5 people.
Who?
Acton.
Oh, Acton. okay.
And they are a lot of well-off people around.
Oh, yeah, we have another part of our drive tonight. We'll talk about that. I don't know, we'll get to it probably till next week, but
Yeah.
yes, Acton is doing quite well, so for them to not have
Right.
studio spaces.
And then they have a big space, but they don't have much in the way of staff. But they are almost certainly a 501c3. 501c3 comes up from time to time, and we are so far away from being able to afford to run that way. We have to run as a town department because there are services from the town by scale that you provide to all the employees, and Joe's an employee and Eric's an employee. There's no way we could make this work as a 501c3. So that's not in the presentation even, I made that up.
Well, I will say a couple of words, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Of course.
Number one, I think the impact of PAC and the work that you do over the years has been, done so transparently as to not realizing for the people who are watching it and taking advantage of the services that you provide, that it's being provided by people. Like, it's just taken for granted because nobody sees, the cooks in the kitchen. Nobody sees behind the scenes.
Right.
And so when it comes to moments like this, nobody wants to see the service go away, but nobody's really aware of how much it costs either. And because there's no interaction, it's not like going to the assessor's office or going to any of the other departments where there's interaction, very little public interaction except through the products that you provide. I think, that leaves you on your back foot, which is unfortunate.
Right.
Because I know, having been involved with you and your department over the years, that there's a lot of work that goes into it and a lot of thought process that goes into it. So I want to thank you. You've been sharing it for many, many years. We've done a lot of work together. Joe has been doing it for many, many years, and I think it's a credit to both of you and your staff, people in the booth, and all the people who do all the events. It is a vital, to my mind, and in my perspective, it is a vital service. I'm very glad that you led with, we are a town department and we should be treated equally. I couldn't agree with you more.
Thank you.
Okay, and I think the town really needs to come up to, step up to the plate to provide these facilities, because I think if they were removed and they started degrading, people would complain that they weren't being able to keeping track, all right? And I say that because I think you're probably one of the main reasons why we don't get a lot of attendance, all right? So you ruin our in-person attendance because people can watch it at home, and that's good,
That's
okay?
a deliberate plan. We have put that in our strategy.
Right. So I am for the space. I know that the space is needed, being a technology person, being in a previous career, being in AV. I think we need to come up with a solution to this, that you guys have been led along looking for space for at least 8 to 9 years already.
Yeah.
And I think we need to come to, and the fact that TCP may not last to make it to phase 3, we got to come to terms with that, and we have really got to come to terms with that pretty quickly. We can't come to the point where, oh my God, there's a major breach or in the roof, or that there's no heating and you can't be in the building. We have to take this seriously. Not saying that the municipal building committee isn't, but I think it has to be, I don't agree with at least the current decision to keep it in phase 3. I don't see how it can be in phase 3. I think it has to be at longest phase 2, but I think it should be very early on to get that situated and in place, because I think it's going to be something that will continue to grow and people will continue to rely on. And I'll just project into the future that even as the franchise fees go down, there will be other funding that will either come from the government or that the town will have to provide to get the kind of coverage of town events that it took years to do. When I first started here in serving with the town in 2004, they were like the select board, then called the Board of Selectmen, was the only meeting on. And there were no remote sites, and there was no games, there were no events, there was nothing. And it took all this time, 20 years, to get almost full coverage of everything. There's still some committees that go under the wire, but we'd like to get it to full coverage. And a lot of it is credited to you guys and your team that you put together. So I will fight as much as I can to make this of the highest priority, certainly a first-tier priority to get this addressed.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You, in fact, were one of the first people I ran into here because I foolishly filled up one of those talent forms.
See what it does to you?
3 weeks later, I was called before the select board, and that was the first time I met you. And if I'm correct, I believe we've worked well for many a long year since then, so thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll say that I watched the YouTube. I've gone back years.
That's good.
And watched a lot. So to me, it is a valuable resource. And I agree that it's something that I think people take for granted. And if it wasn't there, you'd hear about it. You don't hear about it because it's there. People take it for granted. It works. It's great. I am a little more pessimistic than my colleague here, thinking about space. I'm looking at your slide 11, TCP not usable within 10 years. I think that's very
generous.
Very generous.
I'm gonna say this was a 7-year-old presentation.
9.5-year-old presentation, maybe.
I was trying to.
I'm actually even, forget about phase 1, 2, 3.
Phase 0?
Boiler breaks tomorrow. What do you do? Where do you go? So when I look at your space, so I'm looking at this and I see the studios being unique space. The rest of the space is storage and office, right?
Kind of, yeah.
I mean, editing can be done.
Right.
Off-site, right? So I don't know, thinking about studio space and an interim solution, is it a crazy idea to think about sharing space with someone else locally? A studio space?
Oh, you mean like Fitchburg or something like that? We actually did start to discuss this just a little bit. Our real concern with trying to do something like that, other than an emergency, is that they are 4 times as big as we are typically. So we would be the people coming in, and they would reluctantly give us some time.
Are there other towns, I don't know, Air, Shirley, I don't know, smaller towns close by that?
I was going to have that same question, could we look at potentially this part of the building, could it be a regional build that maybe some other communities might be interested in? If we're going to build a state-of-the-art new standalone facility, maybe there's some other smaller communities that might have the same needs that we could look at a partnership with.
There's one that we don't know very much about, which is Townsend. We don't think they have much in the way at all, but they do have some funding, and they have 1 staff member, we believe.
Groton, towns who maybe don't have a studio now because they can't afford one, but if they joined in like a region.
That's the Townsend type of situation, we believe, but we have not been looking into that. One of my real concerns is, as was raised, if the roof does fall in TC Passios, we could damage expensive equipment and expensive people. So, if the snow's above a foot that's forecast, I'm an engineer but not an architectural one. If it's forecast to be more than a foot, my understanding is you should evacuate the building. We can't take the equipment out.
And I think that to your point about regionalizing is great, but regionalizing lengthens the process of getting something done, doesn't shorten it. I think to shorten it, one of the things, I'll use the airwaves or streaming waves, if you're listening to this later on, to say if anybody has commercial space that they are willing to talk with us to rent for several years while we come up with a better plan, it would mean 2 moves potentially, but you know what? It's better than losing equipment and losing service and everything. So if anybody has it there, please contact PAC and contact the town, because I think that's something, there's got to be vacant space There's lots of vacant storefronts.
Bootleggers, it's at the bottom of my right.
But
the reboot, I like it. Yeah, you can.
Is regionalization something to consider even as the long-term solution? I don't know.
I don't know. We haven't explored it seriously. Just our initial conversation about it, we know of one where Lancaster and Sterling is 1 PAC. We have absolutely no idea how they manage budget, because it'll come
I'm just talking shared space. I'm not talking about
I'm sorry,
regionalizing like personnel. I'm just talking about a studio space.
Okay.
Like now you have, office space that you can, people who work from home and need to have like an office for a day can go just walk in and.
That's what I was thinking too, shared space.
No, I don't mean regionalization in the sense of like school regional, no, just a common
facility.
Studio.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think if someone even has a well-heated warehouse that's relatively quiet, preferably with a floor that you can walk on without making noises.
Because I was also wondering, with the advances in technology, does the studio space, has it reduced over the years?
No, that's not really in it. Actually, the cameras, which used to be this big on huge tripods, they are somewhat smaller, but we're going back 30 and 40 years for that. It's the people. They're really annoying some of the time. They take up all this space.
Joe's sitting right there.
Not them, the people who come and visit us.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Yes.
Can you speak to what the Municipal Building Design Committee has talked about with PAC?
Sure. Well, we haven't talked to PAC themselves in quite some time, but in terms of where we are at, so I mean, there's Again, the committee has decided that this is in phase 3, and in my role as a member of this board, I think I recognize that the committee's decision may be in conflict with what I perceive to be the will maybe of this board, and that is why we haven't come to this board for all the other space needs things that we said no to and reduced. But on this one, I do recognize exactly what Mr. Alonso said, that there's a huge community impact here, and that this decision of how to approach this needs to be made, really guided by the executive. So, what the committee members have expressed is number one is the number one concern from the committee is that we're trying to build something that can pass town meeting. And the focus has been on what we call the needs of the town, not the need to haves, not the want to haves. I think the committee has a perception that many of PAC's requests are want to haves, and that everything else in this project, as we've envisioned it, is a need to have. I think that the concern, even from the architects with putting PAC on the site, is that we're not, 30 School Street is not within our charge. And so, we can encroach into it, but it is not, we have not been tasked to figure out what to do with 30 School Street. And so that becomes like a limiting factor where, if PAC were to go on 30 School Street where the former school was, that would certainly be a better remedy than having them in the existing footprint of the Ritter parcel, because there's a need for handicap parking really close to the building. And even like that 15-minute, hey, something I asked for when I was on the planning board was having parking spaces for like 15-minute parking for the people who just need to run in, do something, and get back out. So the area closest to the building, there is an impact of having PAC on the Ritter parcel. And the committee, overwhelmingly, I would say their main concern is that if we come to the town with a request that's a mixture of, I think we can draw a straight line between what we currently do and how this plan remedies it. I think the fear is that adding in the PAC component may scuttle the entire project. When we've engaged with the community, we've only heard opposition to the idea of incorporating PAC into phase 1 or 2, and no support. And so I think that the committee has a fear, legitimately, that PAC may accommodating this kind of square footage without, what does every other town do? Does everyone else have this? Have we thought about regionalizing? That all those kind of questions that are coming out today, that without having answers to them on the front end of this, that it may not be the best path forward.
Okay, thank you, that's helpful. But I still think that leaves us with the question of, that might have been reasonable, and I hear you, and I hear the committee, and I probably would have thought the same had I not been thinking about this holistically. Now where we are, if TCP is not going to be usable very soon, then what do we do? Like, we're left in a situation where we have no remedy, so we have to do something. I think that sort of forces us into moving it into, the earlier phases, because it doesn't sound like we're going to have another option. Like,
No.
what happens if we lose that building?
I think the remedy that I have in my own head is that if this board is willing to, I'm not asking to expand the charge, but if this board is willing to allow us to utilize 30 School Street for a potential site for PAC, I think that will improve the plans for the Ritter parcel. I think it will improve the plans for the Ritter parcel, and I think it could allow the building to be there. I think that it also would allow us to essentially separate when we go to a vote, because again, there's concern that the community may like the other components but not the PAC component, that we can vote for both. We can vote for everything on the Ritter parcel, including the parking lot expansion, and a separate vote for the PAC component. I think that's the solution as I see it. I think that in the interim time, and so as we're working with this architectural team, we've already given them a space needs analysis that says PAC, that says everything that we had at TC Passios. So that way we would have the flexibility to add things in. And so we already have it within our agreement with them that we could plan for this. But I think again, if I can be more clear, I think that it's challenging to accommodate PAC at the envisionment of a new town hall. I think because of what you're asking for, because of the space needs, I think a 3-story building would be a bad idea in the center of Lunenburg. But a standalone building that was on 30 School Street, I think would be a better idea. We don't have enough room to add this on, and I know that there's a request for first floor space. We don't have enough room on the site to add this into the existing footprint as we're envisioning it, and then also allow fire truck access to the back side of the building.
So, thinking out of the box, instead of making it a 3-story building, maybe you keep it a 2-story building and you put PAC on firm ground and you put it underneath. They don't need sunlight. In fact, light is bad.
That's true.
So you can put them, just dig down. I'll just throw that. So make a floor beneath the other two. So the height requirement goes away.
As long as it's dry.
Well, dry would be good, I agree. Although you're dealing with that now. But
Yeah, but that's coming from above. We don't coming from
well,
above.
at least it'd be change the pace.
I'm not sure where 3-story building came from.
Sure, I'll explain that
But
one.
20 feet is a 2-story building.
No, it's already 2 stories in their thing. And
Just for the studio area, I tried to.
So to explain that, you guys have asked for pretty tall ceilings, right? And we already have this first floor being partially underground in a portion of the building. What we would need to do is, and we haven't done this in this part, but we were planning essentially not to dig very deep. When we start planning on digging, we need to do samples to make sure we have it, have that room to go.
Oh, yeah, right.
And we just haven't.
Yeah.
So to me, before you plan the building, you need to have a better awareness of the soils underneath it. In this context, I think we do have awareness to be able to build on it, but to go that deep, that would be something we would need to look into, and is certainly outside of what we are currently contracted to do.
We're just the studio and its control room, 20 feet would be plenty. That's 2 stories, not 3.
Yeah, I think what I was referring to was the existing building as we're envisioning. If you hear that the request is for a 20-foot room, I mean, that's a pretty significant dig if it's going to go into a basement level, right? That would be a pretty significant.
20-foot ceiling? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a pretty significant
But we presently have either 11 or 12. 15 would be adequate.
Okay.
But it comes in chunks of about 10 feet in terms of...
I was just spitballing, by the way. I'm just trying to...
Yeah.
I'm looking at the charge. It just says, the committee may analyze, discuss, and investigate other town-owned buildings and properties in their recommendation as they deem necessary to fulfill this charge. So why can't you already look at School Street, their other parcel?
So I think that we saw it as a limitation to be that 30 School Street we are looking at in terms of parking. I want to be clear. I think that the concern is that at no point in this process did the committee ever say that we wanted to do a standalone building for PAC. And so that is why we're here today.
Sure, but the reason for that is because we thought TC Passios was going to last 3 to 4 years.
Even with the committee having the awareness that TC Passios may not last more than a couple of winters, the committee is not interested in moving this into phase 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And so that is why I'm here today.
I would say, at the risk of, since this body sitting on the stage made your committee.
That's why we're here.
Then I would say that I, as one member of that committee, would like to see it moved because of the situations that were unforeseen. I am not faulting the committee because of conditions unforeseen at the time that it needs to be addressed because I think it's a vital service. I hesitate, I'm not against, but I hesitate making it a separate thing that you said you can make an addendum and you can vote on it separately because that starts pitting departments against each other and people against certain departments, and that is just a recipe for a nightmarish town meeting.
Yep.
So, can I ask one question?
If I just may answer the
Oh, I'm
other
sorry.
part of this,
I'm
then
sorry.
yes. The other part of that, the answer is also that the select board has already kind of taken the charge of figuring out disposition of 30 School Street as a separate kind of issue, and parking was a component of that, and we didn't want to encroach upon too much of 30 School Street beyond what we already envisioned as an expansion of the parking lot. And so we were kind of leaning to the parking area only. If this board makes 30 School Street available, in my opinion, I think that what we can end up with is a plan that includes what we call a white box. PACA already has over $900,000 in reserve to build out the interior of the building.
Right.
And so the committee, even at the TC Passios, it was only to provide them with the white box, essentially. But I think that given the site analysis, I think that it's too complicated. The restrictions are handicap. We will have roughly 5 parking spaces close proximity to all the parking spaces in close proximity to the building will exclusively be accessible parking, and 30 School Street would exclusively be the non-accessible. I think that even for the vehicles that they want, it would be challenging to get them close to the building that they're going to be in on the Ritter site. So all the vans, all the things that they're asking for access to back up, loading dock type thing, we don't have enough land really on this site. So if 30 School Street is an option, I think that a white box on 30 School Street could be envisioned. Mr. Roy, I'm sorry, Mr. Walker, you were going to say something.
A concern of mine that's shown up is we talk about the municipal buildings and PAC. And I do wish we wouldn't keep doing that. We're a town department. So separating us out just because we have one particular need for a tall area. The DPW has some special requirements like propane tanks and garages for very heavy equipment. Every time we hear that it's municipal buildings and PAC, I'm sorry, I just get concerned that we're making the problem worse than maybe it should be. And because of that, your concern, which I understand completely, that if it goes to the town meeting and you say, here's the drawings for the municipal buildings, and by the way, here's this little A4 sheet of paper with PAC on it, we are part of the town. I mean, we do a lot for the town. I really would like it to be more considered that we are part of the town. And the Treasury Department needs computers and software. We happen to need a 625 square foot box that's 20 feet high. I mean, I'm just saying from my perspective, that's what I see. So, thank you.
I appreciate that comment, and I want to apologize if in my language here tonight I haven't been respectful. I think that what I'm trying to say, and maybe my word choices aren't the best here, is that the needs as expressed by PAC are very different than the needs for everything else that we are working with for the repurposing of a new town hall and the school offices. It is very different. We can't just plug you into the existing footprint because we don't have 20-foot tall ceilings. And so there is, no matter, I think as we explored even the offices, could they be incorporated? But I think that the unique requests that are coming from PAC lend itself that it does not integrate well into what is essentially an office building. And that it could, if we had more land, it could over there on that parcel, but I think we're out of land on Ritter. To be able to provide a town hall, a school district office, a building for PAC, and parking anywhere near any of these buildings. I think the only solution here is if we're going to bump PAC into phase 1, which again, I'm asking the board to make a decision on this. I mean, I hear you, and that's why I brought this here, is because I recognize that the decision that the committee has made may be in conflict with what we may need to do. But I don't think that the Ritter site works very well. I think 30 School Street works well, but I think between now and then, we're going to have to justify to the community all these questions that are coming today, which are did you consider alternatives? Does Townsend do the same thing? Does Air do the same thing? Does Shirley do the same thing? Does Pepperell do the same thing? Are we going to be the first town to build, 3,500 square feet for, I know you're saying 2,700, but if it's a standalone building, it's much bigger than 2,700. Are we going to be the first town in the area to have? So I think that type of information needs to come out because the public, and have we considered regionalizing? So I think that it's easy to express many of the things that happen already in Town Hall and Ritter and why there needs to be new space for it. Again, I think that there's going to be many questions. So all that we can really get to at this phase, in my view, is a white box plan and then an estimate for what that white box would be, and then a good site for that white box. But this board would have to accept that, what we were talking about 15 million, that we need to now talk about 17 million or more. That it's unlikely that we can do this within a $15 million budget.
I would like to ask the committee to provide a site, a plot plan with the new building proposed, so I know where the property lines are. And
It's actually in that slide presentation that I provided earlier.
Was it? Okay.
It was on, I think, one of the third slide or so.
Okay, I'll have to look at it again. We're faced, I understand the predicament. There are, off the top of my head, there are three solutions. Number one, find a way to shore up the TC Passios, even in the area that they're in, specifically shoring up that area, but the boiler is the boiler. They're not going to be running on ceramic heaters as an emergency. So that may not be, a viable solution. Number two is, ask people if they're listening out there, if they know commercial space that would do that could enter into a multi-year lease at a reasonable price for the town, that would be the most secure option. The building would be there. You'd have to go into it, and maybe some minor adjustments to get all the stuff moved, but at least having the facilities. But even that is a stopgap to getting a more long-term plan accelerated, because the term plan that it was put on, when did the committee foresee phase 3? What year would we be looking at?
So phase 3, so the holdup is the school. I wouldn't say the holdup. What we recognized was that the disposition of Turkey Hill is tied to the disposition of TC Passios. And so we need the schools to and they are working on it now, to figure out what the disposition of Turkey Hill is going to be. If the disposition is that Turkey Hill will remain as a school and it will be expanded upon, or whatever they come up with, then that TC Passios site, from our view, becomes viable, and then we can proceed with a phase 3 for TC Passios. If they decide that that site is not the best for them and that they need a new school, we believe that PAC would go very well into Turkey Hill, what is now Turkey Hill Middle School. A lot of the food pantry could go there. The expansion of the Boys and Girls Club could go there. And so that's why...
Okay, I realize there's a lot of unknowns. I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm just trying to cut to the chase. What is the earliest that the Municipal Building Committee foresees phase 3 happening?
Earliest would be 2000 fiscal year. We're getting ready to hit 26, fiscal year 27. It would be next year, vote.
Phase 3?
Phase 3?
Phase 3 would be next year?
We would be, this is all kind of back to back. Yeah, we would ask for phase 3 next year. That's the
I don't see
earliest.
that.
That is the earliest. I'm not saying that that's the plan.
I don't even see that as...
I'm saying that's the earliest. If the schools need to move forward with funding requests, right? They're going through a process right now to figure all this out. If they're going to have a borrowing request, that likely is going to come next year. And we would tack on to that borrowing request next year. But I'm not, you asked the earliest. I didn't say the most practical, the best plan.
Okay, I don't even see that as even remotely reasonable.
Yeah, I'm still in shock.
But okay, I did ask a question and you answered it. I think the chances of that happening are
slim to none.
Exactly.
That's the earliest possible.
All right.
The other thing, if I may, the PAC committee, with Joe as well, are very happy to work with you when you start putting something together to ensure that we're all on the same page.
Of course.
So we're around, let us know.
All right. Mr. Roy wants to say something, so I'm going to call Mr. Roy here.
Yeah, hot mic, sorry. There's a lot going on in my brain, but one of the things that I liked about the current phasing plan, if you will, that we have laid out for you, that we've been talking about, this hybrid plan that we branded, but now it's just the plan, is that it's flexible, right? You know, it's divided up in a way that allows us to, if circumstances in town, if we proceed with the first phase, which is clearly town hall, the latter phases, we can pivot, you know, if we need to, based on circumstances that happen in town, such as with schools and things. One of the things that Michael Ray said with the PAC space, it seems to me, and you said it, Mr. Walker, it is similar to the DPW in that it's unique space. It's got real special requirements that seem like they would lend themselves well to a standalone building, because I think that it would influence the cost in a negative way, well, in an upward way, if we were to co-locate it in a building that's just, you know, normal height ceilings and things like that. I'm not saying that wouldn't be ideal, you know, from a, you know, programming standpoint. I'm just saying that I think from a cost standpoint, co-locating that kind of space in a building like that is going to increase cost. That's what led us to go down this path about a separate building. Me personally, I've learned a lot tonight. First of all, thank you. I know we've been talking a lot over the years, but you know, I really appreciated the opportunity to be here tonight and hear your perspective at this point in time. I personally don't feel the need for this to be in a later phase. Like, I think that one of the other advantages to having this as a standalone building, we can ask the town for the money for what we're calling phase one for town hall, inclusive of a standalone building, and those costs can be, in a cost estimate, separated. The town can transparently see what the cost of this building is going to be, what the cost of the other building is going to be, and we can see what the town says on the town meeting floor. I mean, and that gets back to my thing. If the town meeting says no, right, we can pivot, right? You still wouldn't necessarily have to back off from a town hall project. But if the town, you know, and we're successful as a group from a hearing, is that we need to take this torch as a group and educate the town as to why we need this, right? Because it's a silent, sort of wind beneath my wings kind of organization, if you will, you know, not seen but heard, if you will. Like your presence is known, but it's not visible, and we need to sort of lift the veil on that, if you will. That's our job from now until town meeting. But I don't see the reason why we keep it in a phase three. I think that, first of all, maybe I missed the meeting. I don't remember voting on that. I might have. But I think for me, I was thinking we had a longer solution at TC Passios, to be quite frank. The other thing I wanted to say about School Street is I really think that with the discussion that your board has had over the years on 30 School Street, that, yeah, if we want to propose something there, I mean, we've talked about turning this into a town green. You know, there's been some colorful dialogue on that property. So I don't think that our committee, the Lunenburg Municipal Design Committee, should propose something there without direct input from your board on that, because I just think there's more under the hood, if you will, to that discussion. But no, I appreciate the thoughts here. I hope we can come up with something. And, you know, I'd be remiss if I hope we could do it for less than $2 million, too. I mean, it just seems crazy to me.
I would agree with you, by the way. That did seem high, but again, once you add all the extra things.
It does seem high, but you'd be amazed. I mean, with these type of projects, they do add up fast. But if we're building a shell of a building, you know, we're building you know, we don't have to put what we call FF&E, fixtures, furniture, and equipment in it. Hopefully, we could deliver something that's economical.
Mr. Archambault.
That's okay, yeah, I'll use this one. Oh, yes.
This is Steve Archambault. 2 years ago, we looked into a building, and the cheapest kind of building you could build was a steel frame, and that's what Leominster built. And I went with them, we talked with them, and the whole thing. And so I actually called the company and asked them for a quote. So in April of $22, it ended up for a 2,400 square feet, 2,400 square feet building. It was going to cost $1,500,000. No, 150,000. Yeah, I got to read my numbers. No, just the building, just to have them bring the building and put it up was $100,000, and that was just a steel shell with a concrete base, and that was it. And then the problem comes in adding the bay doors, adding the windows, adding the plumbing and all that, and that's what brings it up. The actual shell is in 2022 was $105,000, just the shell. So I just wanted to give you that price. If you use concrete, if you use brick, if you use a different kind of construction, then it goes up. The problem with the steel building, when I talked to Fitchburg, Leominster, sorry about that. It has to be super insulated and soundproofed. So there's and that's where the $1.5 million to $2 million is probably a very good estimate just to get the building and the property set. Because we also looked into what it would cost to do the property. And at that time, we had $900,000 set aside for the studio. That paid to put the building up in 1 year operation. And then that was it, because there was not enough money coming in from the Comcast fees to staff it or to pay any of the maintenance and all that. So I just wanted to add that.
Appreciate it. Mr. Roy, and then...
Actually, I had one other question. Mr. Walker, in your presentation, I thought I heard you say, and I just want to clarify, did you say that you didn't have the budget to operate a standalone building and have staff? Did you say something like that?
What I was saying, as we're doing our present budgeting,
Yeah.
the direct income from franchise fees will pay for the operations, but will not pay for any capital.
Capital outlay on the
emergency
building.
capital. We're not spending capital on improvements and everything else willy-nilly, as we would say in England. But
Right.
if we have a catastrophic failure of the machine back there,
Okay.
we can't wait for a town meeting to get authorization to use the fund.
Understood.
We can't draw from the fund without going through town meeting.
Okay, but if you were provided a space, I mean, if we figure out a way to get this done and provide you a space, something like what we're talking about in a standalone building, that's an acceptable, you can operate that.
Right.
With your, okay.
Next
I
week
misunderstood
would be
then what you said. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Clarify one thing. I should clarify one statistic. When I did visit Leominster, we figured out how much it would cost us to do what they did for our size to make it to 20. It was $1.5 million completely outfitted and nowadays it would be $2 million, but 1.5 at that point to create the building and to put everything into it. I didn't want to misrepresent that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So I want to ask this board, based on the presentation that we received tonight, thank you, Mr. Walker.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Archambault. Based on the presentation that we received tonight, asking the board for clear guidance to the Municipal Building Design Committee about how to proceed as it relates to PAC. I think after hearing all of this tonight, again, my recommendation would be that the board open up 30 School Street as a potential site.
Since that doesn't commit anybody to anything, I think that makes sense. But I'd also like to hear, since we are not a full board, I'd like to hear what the chair thinks, obviously, as well. I think, want to give somebody a fair estimation. But I'm certainly for considering it and seeing what can be done with it, sure.
Yeah, I worry about parking, the impact of the parking for the whole complex, as long as that's considered.
Okay. But you're okay with the 30 School Street move?
Looking at it, I think, yeah, I question how big to make the standalone, if it's acceptable to just have a dedicated studio, control room, storage, and maybe offices in Town Hall or something like that. I don't know if that helps.
Right, I mean, of course,
You know,
the
those
drawback,
details.
the drawback is to take a lot that we had some other ideas with, as Mr. Roy said.
Yeah.
And then in an emergency, let's put a rectangle on it and put it so that we can do it. We're never going to be able to do that again. You know, one of my favorite business books ever is, if you don't have time to do it right, when are you going to have time to do it over? This is a great example of that. So while I'm willing to entertain it, I'd rather it be more incorporated into the vision.
The longer-term plan, like a Turkey Hill does open up, and that becomes, then if we have a shell sitting on 30
Right.
School Street, what happens with that?
So a temporary building, if that's even at all
Leasing a
possible,
space would be-
Yeah, leasing a space would be the easiest.
And sharing that lease with maybe another, to, you know, lessen the financial burden.
I will say, as an aside, by the way, and of course, this is not any help in this situation, but maybe helpful in the future, is that this is what happens when you vacate buildings and you don't do anything with them, and the town doesn't plan anything with them, and they just get left alone. This is an awful example of what happens with that, and we have to do better, and we should be able to do better in the future with things like this. What's going on there and what happened with the old primary school, these are just terrible decisions that were not acted upon, and there were certainly enough instances to do it that town meeting voted down, so there's a lot of...
I mean, I'm worried about the food pantry, too.
Well, I mean, I think the practical implication here is what, the viability of Phase 3. When you're only talking about a gym for the public and space for a nonprofit entity that really can't afford, to maintain the space that they're in, my opinion is that I don't know what the public appetite is to build out new space or remodel space at a premium price for a food pantry and for a gym. I think that PAC added into that becomes a little more appealing, and PAC taken out of that. I don't know the viability of a plan that's that.
And to make the distinction, I don't disagree with you, but to make the distinction, PAC, as they've said several times, is a town department.
Yep.
And the Lions Club, I am very supportive of all the work that they do, but they're not a town department.
No, I worry if the boiler breaks tomorrow.
Yeah, it's awful. It would be awful. Yeah. So, anyway.
So I agree. I think allowing the Municipal Building Design Committee to look at 30 School Street, to present the town and this board some more options is I'm for that 100%. I also think that we would be remiss, as I mentioned in the meeting last night, to not fully vet out these projects. I think, we have two that come off to my mind. We have a school that doesn't have air conditioning in it. We have a public safety building that has an area for an elevator but doesn't have an elevator. I think that we have a history of not fully completing projects when we do them. And I think that, looking at this kind of size and this investment, we really need to fully vet it. And I think this is part of that process, to fully vet out and look at that property.
Okay.
And I would absolutely urge the PAC to actively look for and reach out to places saying, hey, I don't know, get anywhere on social media and just ask people if you know of any space of this nature that's free, that the owners are willing to rent it out for, multi-year lease and everything. And even that, if the town should need to pony up some money to do that, to assist, which would give us time to plan, even that's better than saying, hey, let's put a $2 million building on a plot of land that it took us forever to take down an old building that's an eyesore, to put up a new building that maybe in 10 years is an eyesore. We don't need that.
I also want to reiterate some of the prior comments that I really appreciate, the thorough presentation that you guys gave, because I think it gives, more insight into the ask. But I think that as we do bring this forward to town meeting, having the comparable communities that I think Mr. Vice Chair brought up, looking at the presenting all of the work that goes into it is going to be important, because I think, as it's been brought up multiple times by multiple speakers, I don't think people understand how much work the service that you guys provide takes. So I think having more data and things to present to the townspeople is really the only way we're going to get support, whichever avenue we go. I think we're going to need to have that data to back it up.
All right, so I think my hunch on this was correct by bringing this to this board and seeking this board's guidance on how to proceed. So I know this was a lengthy conversation to kind of flesh this out. I think the takeaways here are pretty clear. So we will proceed with, I will advise the architects and municipal building design committee that the select board is advising to incorporate PAC space into phase 1 and 2 of this project. Phase 1 and 2 meaning phase 1 and 2 have to happen at the same time, right? Well, not at the same time, but one after the other, but to incorporate them into phase 1 and 2 of this process. All right, thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you all for your time and continued efforts.
All right, so I know we're getting a little late here, and so I want to jump in the agenda to discussion on the town manager interviews and hiring process. And I know we have John
Petrin, yeah.
I don't want to say his last name.
Petrin.
Petrin.
Yep.
With us this evening. John, I want to thank you for being patient with us. I think Carter was going to text you when you were 10 minutes out, but I think you've been here with us for quite some time.
Happy New Year, John.
Same to you. Hopefully, guys, everybody there had a great holiday season.
All right. So, as I understand, what we're discussing tonight is we had some questions that you sent out to us a little bit ago about what questions we should select for the interviews, and then also to identify for ourselves, confirm the location as being at the library and not at town hall. So I think we're trying to confirm the location of it, the questions, and then the other part is the format in terms of who's going to ask the questions. Will it be members of the committee? Are we going to ask Mr. Petrin to ask the questions? So I think the format is also what we're trying to identify tonight for a solution. So let's start with the location. We've booked the room at the library just in case this board's in agreement to it. But I think
Yes, I think that for the reasons we discussed at our last meeting, in that it creates a more, informal, comfortable setting for the applicants. It doesn't look like somebody's being grilled and doing some wildly public presentation. And we want them to be at their best and be at ease, aside from the presentation part that we're going to ask them to do. So that setting at the library, I think, is much more conducive to that than this more formal setting at Town Hall. That's my perspective.
Okay, I agree. You agree?
I agree.
Yes.
Agree. Excellent. Format. Do we want to individually ask questions, or do we want to have Mr. Petrin ask the questions?
I like the idea of having Mr. Petrin asking the questions.
Yeah, I thought we discussed
Yeah.
that he would moderate.
He asked the questions at the screening committee. That worked well, and then people on the screening committee were able at any point to ask follow-up questions, and there was time allotted for that, so that worked out the best, yes.
Okay. Last are the questions that we want to ask. Mr. Petrin, I just want to turn it to you to make sure that I give you the opportunity here to offer anything that you need us to do, any recommendations, anything you want to say to help guide as we finish this part.
No, what I provided you, I think, is a list of questions which cover the various areas, that you're probably looking to, to know about from the candidates. And the other thing is, I've spoken to the candidates. They're all set and they're ready to give the 5-minute presentation, as part of the PowerPoint. I told them no more than 5 slides. So that's the other part of the presentation. But you have the list of questions. And if you think that's fine, we'll work from that. But if you have additional questions or substitute questions, always always willing to, listen to what you're seeking.
All right. If I may recommend to the board, I think the best course ahead for us would be maybe to look at the questions that Mr. Petrin provided with us, think of our own, and send him our top 3 as individuals. And then I think he can at that point compile, see the similarities. It's not going to end up with 15. It will probably have some overlap. What do we think about that as an approach? Or do we want to go question by question tonight and pick them out?
No, I mean, so first let me pitch John, because he's not going to say it himself. I mean, first of all, he's been a town manager, and he's been doing this in Community Paradigm for a while. So he's very good knowing. He's had multiple conversations with the candidates, not only for this job, sometimes for other jobs too, so he knows some of them, and he knows their background from their resume. He knows the questions to ask each one, and it wasn't identical. There was lots of overlap in the screening, but they weren't identical. So some people who clearly showed, very large amount of experience in finance, they didn't ask them finance questions because it was very obvious. So I think giving him the latitude is good for a blanket overall umbrella questions for the candidate, and then. Like I know for myself, I had different follow-up questions for each of the 6 candidates that we interviewed. I would assume the same thing, even though I'll be seeing them for the second time, you'll be seeing them for the first time. I think it's every interview that I do, even when I interview for work, is different candidate for candidate, even for the same job. There's some overlapping questions, but you wind up asking people different things because of what they say. So having him, John, choose from this array of questions, and then us asking questions that maybe we prepared in advance for a candidate or maybe come to our mind, works best. It really gets to be a more fluid conversation, I think, and less formal.
Okay.
I agree.
You agree?
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to take that approach. So we like the questions, and if we have any unique ones, I think we'll add them in, and then follow-ups, I think, we'll plan our own follow-up questions or in the moment, as they normally
Right, exactly. And if there's a question that John doesn't ask from his own sheet here to a candidate, because he didn't feel like the need to ask that, but you feel it's important to give you the answer, then certainly ask the question.
Yep. All right, anything else, John, that you're looking for us to finalize? I think right now the plan is next Wednesday, 5:30 at the library. Do you think it would be helpful? Tuesday, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Tuesday, 5:30 at the library. Do you think that it would be helpful for us to plan to get there a little early? I mean, of course, everyone, but kind of give us the overview. So maybe we plan 5:15, or are we going 5:30, 5:30?
I'm going to do my best to get away from work, so
Yeah,
I'd be close. I'll try to get there early.
Okay.
Is there like a cocktail hour or anything on this?
Whatever you wish to bring, it's BYOB.
I thought
I'm
Community
not going to get in
Paradigm was
trouble
going
on
to do
the air
that.
here, being recorded with the statement on that, so.
I thought Community Paradigm was going to front that.
Yeah. It's just like the screening round interviews. What I fronted there, you'll get fronted for this.
Right.
All right. John, is there anything else you need us to advise, make decisions on this evening?
No, and if you have questions, you have the 3 candidates. It's been released to you. You have the report from us. I can say, we reviewed the background on each of the candidates. You have that. And, and all the information. If you have questions prior to, please give me a call. You have my number. I'm more than willing to talk to anybody, as to questions you may have. All right. Available.
All right.
But otherwise, I'll be there early next week. I've spoken to all 3 candidates yesterday to make sure everybody's ready and prepped, and they're all can't wait for the interview for next Tuesday, and of course your decision next Wednesday.
Okay.
Excellent.
I was going to ask you something, but I just blanked. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Website. Something Carter mentioned to me earlier in the day when I spoke with him briefly was that we're going to be posting the resumes and cover letters onto the website. I just want to confirm that we're all in agreement with doing that, and do you recommend that approach? I'm sorry,
That's-
it wasn't to the website, it was to the agenda, that when we post the agenda, that we will attach the resumes and the cover letters to the agenda. I just wanted your feedback on that.
That's fine. We've redacted, the cover letter and the resumes to make sure that, phone numbers were removed and so on. But everything else is legal, and people have the right to see if they wish. So how you handle that is up to each town, and I think that's fine attaching to the agenda. The only requirement is that you list the names on the agenda as to who's being interviewed, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what we gain from publishing the resumes and cover letters, but I'm not against it. I mean, we'll be talking about it, so at the meeting, it'll become public record anyway, but if you want to do it in advance, that's fine. As long as it's just those two, the cover letter and the resume, not
Correct.
the
Yes.
rest of the document.
Right.
We're all in agreement with that approach?
That's fine.
That's fine with me.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Thank you, John.
Okay.
See you
thank
next
very
week,
much.
John. Have a good week.
And we'll see you next week, next Tuesday.
You got it. Thanks.
Thank you again. We don't have any appointments, ratifications, resignations. We are going to skip the interim town manager report. Carter is with us, but he is a bit under the weather. So we are going to skip over the town manager report. Although, if there's anything you want to say, Carter, you're more than welcome to.
I'd rather save it, thank you.
Okay.
Save your voice.
Yep. No, Carter, we see you. We understand you're not feeling too well.
Rest up, feel better.
Yep.
All right. 56 Carr. We did receive additional correspondence that indicates that there's no open permits on, I'm going to old business now, that we didn't receive there's no permits, open permits for 56 Carr, nor approved current site plan development, anything for that property. And so the question tonight is to sell or to hold.
You actually have three choices, if I might, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
The first is you could take it to foreclosure to sell it. The second is you could take it to foreclosure to hold it. Just bear in mind that you will have to have an appraisal within 14 days of the foreclosure, and you will need to have the money to purchase it or to reimburse the owner of any excess shortly thereafter. If you think you are interested in holding it but aren't sure of the amounts of money or timelines, you could actually take no action at this point in time while the holding investigation played itself out.
Yes, and one of the things I'll ask again, and I don't remember the question, is if we were to pursue the foreclosed to sell, in the interim while we have it, before we sell it, could we, as the temporary property owners, put deed restrictions on the property?
I do not believe so. I'd have to explore that with legal, because you would be diminishing the value of the property that you took. So I would suggest you might be able to put those deed restrictions on, but you would not be able to devalue the property for the purposes of compensation due the owner, if any.
Okay, well, if we can find that out, so I'm more than happy to wait and take no action while we get the answer to that.
And we can certainly do that for you.
Okay.
I concur. No action, are we in agreement on no action?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
No action, yes.
No action. Well, once we get that information, I think we'll be better informed to be able to take action, so thank you for that, Carter. Next, we have the comparison communities, and so there were, if we take a look at this, let me just pull it up here. We had some requests last week, or the last time we met, rather, about adding in additional data about the single-family tax bill, median family income, so that way we can better identify if these communities really are comparable to us. Here in Lunenburg, the average single-family tax bill in 2024 was $6,788, and the median family income in 2023 was $109,753 a household.
Do we know, by the way, again, I hate to always bring up these differentials, but the single-family tax bill, is that a median as well, or is that an average?
That is the average.
Average, okay.
As reported by DLR.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So looking at the list from last time, the key changes here are that Rutland, the recommendations to remove Rutland as their average household income is $155,000. Recommendations to remove Templeton as their average tax bill is $4,338,000.
But just to be clear, Mr. Chair, they're being asked to remove it because their affordability ratio was so
Correct.
low.
Correct.
Okay, not because of their average tax bill.
Thank you. And then also when we look at Gardner, Gardner similarly, our affordability ratio is 6.18. Gardner has a single-family tax bill of $4,892 and single median family income of only $62,948, and affordability ratio 7.77. And then Concord, single-family tax bill average is $19,104 a year, and the median family income is $212,315. And then Acton also removed as the single-family tax bill, and affordability ratio in Concord is 9%. In Acton, they are also being removed as a single-family tax bill is $13,992. The median family income is $153,000 and some change, and the affordability ratio is 9.12%. So I know that speaking with town staff earlier today, the request is for us to accept the list as presented with these additional modifications.
Yeah, just for people at home, if I may, Mr. Chair, to explain. So when I asked the tax rate be removed and we replaced it after discussion with these three columns, we wanted to know what the average single-family tax bill in each community was, what the median family income was, and if you do that ratio, so you take the single-family, the average single-family tax bill divided by the median family income, you see how much people are paying in taxes as is a percentage of their income, and that is what we're calling the affordability ratio. So we're trying to get people or towns within our affordability ratio, plus or minus like 25%, I think, is what Julie did.
Mr. Chair, could we have, I don't know if Renee, if you're still on the Zoom, maybe share this chart on the.
Yeah, I can.
Unfortunately, I think this doesn't show well on TV, it's given
Oh.
the font size. You certainly can do it, but
I don't know, do you want me to?
Yeah, sure. Of course.
I'm still on Zoom, so.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's helpful to see.
I think it would be helpful too, yeah. Anyway, I think this gives us a more fair, I thank Carter for recommending the affordability ratio. In addition to the other two columns I recommended, I think it gives you a fair assessment of what the taxation, and I'll use the word burden, but what the taxation ratio is per median income in neighboring towns. And I think that, then we're looking at a more apples to apples. I was actually super surprised that Acton was the highest. I mean, it beat Concord, and that's, I guess, because Acton's median income is lower than Concord's by a significant amount. But their average tax bill of almost $14,000 is just really surprising.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought Julie's approach was good here. She did 25% of Lunenburg's, that's where the range was, so it wasn't looking at the communities, based on location only, but based on, like you just said, I think that ratio that is being presented is a great approach, and I think this gives us a good comparable analysis versus what, we might have done in the past.
So with the removal of the lowest and the highest, as Julie has recommended, I am certainly comfortable with accepting this as the comparable competitive community list.
I do have one question before we make that. If you look at her memo, she did suggest leaving in Gardner because they were only 0.04%.
Yeah.
Well, that-
I'm surprised that one was
So
crossed off in this list.
her memo, which says comparable communities for Carter,
Yeah, no, I saw that. I mean.
I don't know if that's changed
So-
since your discussion.
I guess, I mean, the point is, we choose an arbitrary, first of all, the 25% higher and 25% lower in itself is arbitrary.
Right.
So, and then to choose one that's outside of that,
Yeah, right.
but only by 0.04, saying, well, arbitrarily, we should put that one back in.
Yeah, no.
I mean, either it's in or it's out by our own methodology. I don't really have a strong feeling one way or another.
I think Concord and Acton are clear outliers, right? Those are no-brainers.
I just didn't know if she wanted specifically, because she said,
She asked,
argues
she
to
asked
leave it
what?
on.
She wants
So if there's-
Gardner to be in.
I don't know why.
Yeah, I can answer that one. We lost a DPW director to Gardner. We lost the assistant.
Who lived there, by the way.
Who lived there. We also lost the assistant town accountant to Gardner. And so there are two communities that we know we lost staff from, and that were offered more, I just did something probably, but were offered more pay to go there. Granted, in both cases, both members lived in the Gardner area. Right.
Living close to home is a very perk for a lot of people.
But I think it is a statistic that we have.
Yeah, I'm fine either way. I just wanted to, I knew I had saw that in her memo.
I don't.
Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, I'd like to bring Gardner back in.
Yeah, there's a note that it's not used for department heads. There's a
Yep.
footnote
That's
here.
fine. Well, that would be a reason to even keep it out more, but that's, I don't care. I'm not going to vote against it one way or another for Gardner.
I'm fine with supporting whatever this town staff wants to do, either way on that.
Yeah, I'd like to keep Gardner in. I think that's clear why Julie's included it and why she's made that note. All right, I'll make the motion to accept the comparable competitive communities and to add back in the city of Gardner.
Second.
All right, any additional discussion? As many as are in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, no. Passes unanimously. All right. And for the update on ARPA, Carter, I know that we are late in the evening. I know you are under the weather. I think that we can probably reserve the majority of this for.
I can actually speak to it quickly if you wouldn't mind.
Nope.
So you have two documents. The first is the spreadsheet, and that will continue to change a little bit here and there. I would ask you to look at the one entitled CY 24 year-end doc. We met on Tuesday and reviewed the status of the school bids and what we knew about everywhere else we were. As we had told you when we spoke with you last time, we had some wild cards on the school side of the house. They were short $62,000 on the Turkey Hill fire alarm. On top of that, they had upwards of $25,000 for engineering and potential contingency. We did not know the results of the balance of the school bids that were being held at the time we spoke with you. The other bids came in so tight that there's no money left to throw against Turkey Hill. And in fact, they may not be able to undertake those projects, but at present, there was no way to fill the gap whatsoever. So what we did, we had a couple of $1,000s left in the year of capital for the Turkey Hill fire alarm. That was a little over $20,000. So we transferred that internally within that capital year to Turkey Hill. We then found $75,000 we were able to apply that was still laying loose within the ARPA when we presented it to you. And that gives them approximately 13. Yes, it gives them enough to sign the contract, which we did do, and it gives them $13,000 towards engineering and towards contingency. Now, we still have other opportunities to take care of their needs. It is possible that some of the projects we have will close out a little bit light. And do remember, we start with a $23,000 internal contingency in Public Works. Instead of spending only $25,000 of ARPA money on the tree trimming and another $23,000 of town money, we signed the entirety of the contract to ARPA, and we froze what was in the operating expense. So if the school department does need some more money for the Turkey Hill Elementary School fire alarm, we would take that frozen $23,000 and then transfer that towards the school department project. You will note, we've told the school, we're telling everyone, try to burn your ARPA money first. That will clean up the accounting and make it a lot simpler going forward also. Finally, there was some monies that have been set aside for staff challenges in IT, and you have your negotiations for your incoming town manager. We don't know how quickly they'll be available to you. We don't know exactly what you'll negotiate with them. So there was two choices with the money that had been set aside. The first was to write what's called a continuity plan, by which we would have to lay out why we had set those monies aside to continue to administer the ARPA program. That's subject to review and subject to audit, which equals future risk. So what we did instead is we will pay those monies down on existing administration and finance salaries and freeze the unused balances. That means that when you go to hire your town administrator, we can reverse any of those accounting changes, and you will have more than sufficient monies to execute that contract. And we have an internal contingency there to help us cover anything unforeseen that might go wrong. Now, we still have numbers changing a little bit as these invoices come in, but I think we're in pretty good shape. And I know it was quite a bit of work on Izzy's part and the staff's work, as I would meet with them weekly and in the last week almost daily to try to make sure we had all of our bases covered. But I do want to thank all of them for putting up with me during that process and making this happen. We will continue to give you updates and continue to work on the balance of your capital items such that we can try to help you get as many ARPA and capital projects out to bid during my remaining time with you. And thank you for putting up with my voice and giving me a few minutes here to walk you through that. Happy to answer any questions on that.
Thank you, Carter. Do we have any questions for the interim town manager?
No, sir.
All right.
Thank you for the update.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. I'm going to sign off and wish you a good rest of your evening.
Hope you feel better.
All right.
Better, Carter.
Me too. Thank you all.
Have a good evening. All right, rest of the agenda here, we should crank through this quick. I've been asked to pass over number 4, which is reviewing the Cannabis Control Commission host community agreement. And I was advised that that will be ready for next week. And then annual climate survey policy and select board town manager goal setting policy. I understand that Selectman Moore is working on a draft for these. And so if
Just
anyone.
for the climate survey
Okay.
to start with. I think it probably is easier if we start with 1 versus 2.
I agree. So if anyone has any ideas for what they'd like to see in this climate survey policy, please email them to Amanda. All right, and then Okay, we already hit current business minutes. We have minutes for January the 9th and January the 9th, 2024, and December the 17th, 2024.
I have not had a chance to review
They
them.
just appeared in there today, so
I didn't have a chance to
not
review them either.
I only read January 9th.
All right, so we're going to pass over the minutes and have them for next week. I just want to reiterate to Carter, and I know Annie's going to watch this. It's really important that as many documents as we possibly can have are uploaded into the drive the Thursday before the meeting. Just want to reiterate that, so that way members can take advantage of their weekends when they have some free time, read through it. It is really difficult, if not impossible, to read anything that comes in the drive on a Tuesday or Monday even.
Yeah, I mean, I work all day and then come right here. There's no prep time.
Yeah, anything that shows up on a Tuesday isn't getting read. So
Not for Tuesday night, that's for sure.
yeah, so just want to reiterate the importance of that coming in a little earlier than we've seen them. All right, we have some warrants. Let's sign off on them real quick.
Potential action item, something I noticed when I was skimming through the January 9th minutes. So last year on January 9th, we voted to open the annual town meeting warrant. It was open from January 9th to March 18th.
We're getting
According
close.
to the minutes, yeah.
Oh, we're getting close to the warrant opening. Oh, for sure.
Yeah, like,
Like now.
yeah.
Like now is right, yeah.
Yeah.
So it should be next week.
It should be. next
Okay.
week. Yeah. No, speaking with the chair, I think one of the things that I've asked about is, the times of things. That, are we tracking the times? Certain things must
Yeah.
occur at certain times of the year. And are we managing that? The chair has assured me that he is.
Okay. It would be good, too, to get a preview of what the schedule is for the budget season.
It would be.
I think FinCom has,
Yep.
Just
a
have to look
draft.
at last year's, just
All
go
right.
back in our agendas.
oh, last year was so crazy, though. We want to be a little.
Before we knew about an override, believe me, at the beginning.
Beginning, yeah.
We had
The
agreed.
the FinCom public hearings were so late,
No,
remember?
no, yeah, right, but at least when we're opening, when closing, because there are just,
Yep.
there are charter requirements for, printing and then mailing.
Yep.
things
I
like
For the warrant, yeah.
All right, so I'm just noting, because I have to email them, action item is the warrant schedule. Certainly want to see the finance committee schedule, finance committee public hearing schedule.
I think, I'm sorry.
Yep. Was there anything else I missed?
Well, we don't usually get their schedule. The finance committee takes care of what their hearing is. We don't usually know that in advance.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I honestly need to know so I can get in front of the Municipal Building Design Committee. So it would be helpful to kind of know.
No, right, but I'm saying this board,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
could ask them, but.
Another action item, I think we brought it up at the last meeting, is I'd like to see on the agenda the public records requests. And I think that we need to have a public
I agree.
discussion about it personally.
I mean, I will say, I recognize that there was a public comment earlier today about that, and I want to be clear. It was not in reference to anyone FOIAing me. Anyone who wants to sit and go through my emails, I will gladly sign them in for you. You can read anything you want, and there's nothing private in my emails in the town. So certainly, I'm not concerned about anyone reading anything I've ever sent. My concern is that we have residents in the community who are submitting daily Freedom of Information Act requests, daily phone calls, daily emails, and this is consuming a significant amount of time.
It's putting a burden on our town and on our
It is.
our employees, and I think it needs to be a more
Yeah.
public process, and I think that needs to be a discussion that we have
Correct.
here, and I think that needs to be an agenda item in order
Yep.
for us to have a discussion on it. Right?
I agree.
Correct?
No, I think it's very legitimate for anyone in the public to want to review anything that any public entity is doing. However, the FOIAs that we are receiving, that I'm making reference to, have nothing to do with any public body as much as it has to do with people's neighbors. And that's why I think that stuff like, and then additionally, if someone person, Mr. Joe Public, FOIAs my emails, for example, for 3 months, why shouldn't they get published on the website so that way, Sue's Sally Public doesn't have to submit the same request and spend any money? Just make them available to anyone.
I think that's something that we talked about with transparency as one of our goals too. And,
Yeah.
maybe we have a transparency center for public records requests. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I think that can be part of the discussion. And I'd
So-
like to see that as an action item on an
Okay.
agenda very soon.
Yeah, I'm sorry for digging into it, but, all right, so the request is to discuss the public records, how do you want me to phrase this? Public records abuse? That's a
Can we
little,
just say public records update?
okay.
I don't know what you'd call it.
You looking to capture the amount of time
Yeah, I'm
town
looking to.
employees
to
are
have sort of
spending?
an update from the, the interim town manager or from relevant staff on the burden that's being placed on
Mm-hmm.
the staff and the resources that it's being used for.
And what's not getting done?
And,
Yeah, I mean-
and what is not getting it done.
I think you're going to find out that there's limited recourse, and that is unfortunate. I mean, I don't agree with it, but I think that's what we're going to find out.
I agree, but I at least think that the public should be aware of the amount of time and effort and town resources and therefore town.
Again, I'm not
dollars
against
that
having
go
a
in.
discussion, believe me.
Oh, no, I know you're
I'm
not.
more than happy to have it.
I mean, I think, even as, I'm happy to have the conversation. I think there's clearly a struggle where we thought of our records officers, basically the town manager, and we think about the town manager salary. I think the vision is that, you have a FOIA come through, someone like the town manager verifies that the information that's being provided is accurate. But should the town manager at the town manager's salary be processing daily FOIAs for 2 hours? That's a whole nother staff position, And so I do think we got to talk about cost. And so as we come up with this, what I'm going to ask for is that we add it to the agenda, but I would also like to ask if there's any estimation of cost, of how much it's costing us for,
In staff hours.
okay. Because again, it's not about the transparency. It's about, when people want to, it's about the other stuff. All right. Any other action items? All right. Let's go through the warrants. We have an accounts payable warrant in the amount of $2,779,248.28.
Wow.
I know, this must be a holiday one, and I signed in blue.
Accounts payable.
Yep.
Cannot sign accounts payable.
Payroll's usually different.
No, payroll I can sign now.
Oh,
I
see
can't sign
what
accounts
you're
payable.
saying.
Why can't you sign it?
My mom is submitting invoices for her services through accounts payable.
All right, and this looks like it goes with it.
What is?
I suppose I could have looked at it. I just can't pay it.
Yeah. All right, any committee reports this evening?
No.
Nope.
No.
Okay. Municipal Building Design Committee, we met last night. I went over the presentation, and I think I highlighted some of the things that we're working on, meeting with the town clerk tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. I'm meeting with department heads at their department head meeting at 8:30, as well as the superintendent, and then meeting with Historical Commission at 9:15. Through the student initiative, I'm also meeting with some students who are working on a senior, not a senior, but working their community project on Thursday at 2:45 at the library. Municipal Building Design is also going to be meeting, our natural meeting would occur on Martin Luther King Day, so our next meeting is pushed to Wednesday, the 22nd. And all of our meetings are at 5:30. And again, I want to encourage the public to participate. These next two meetings are a lot of good data coming out. And then presentation, again, will be right here in front of the select board by the architectural team on February the 4th. All right, upcoming meeting schedule, January the 14th and January the 21st. To be clear, we're not having anything on the agenda next week other than interviews.
We're also meeting. on the 15th.
We're also meeting on the 15th.
Okay.
So that should be there.
Yep. All right,
But
so,
yes.
okay, so we do not have a regular meeting on the 14th. It is a special meeting with candidates that starts at 5:30. And then we have a meeting on the regular meeting, as I understand it, on the 15th, correct?
I believe it's just, I
Or is
think
it
there's a,
just,
Yeah, I think it's just.
we do have the both agendas.
Just an
in there.
executive session.
yeah.
Yep.
Well, deliberation is in public
Right,
session and then
right,
executive
yes.
session for it, right?
Is that
Yep.
in town hall? Do we know? On
So we've got a draft agenda in here.
Yep. We do have the draft. The draft, it is Bellata Room would be on the
Bellata
15th. That would also be at 5:30.
Oh, it's 5:30 on Wednesday?
That's what is
Ooh.
being proposed as, is a question
Yeah,
mark.
well, again, I'm not going to be able to do 2 days at 5:30.
Yeah.
It might have to be 6 at least.
What time do we want to do that?
Six.
This is the earliest for you.
6.
I can do
Yeah.
6.
6. Okay, so we'll give the feedback that the meeting on the 15th needs to be at the 6 p.m. Okay.
Just because we're talking about future meetings, I will not be here on February 10th.
Okay. This is your annual ski trip, if I remember correctly.
It is.
I will not be here on February 4th.
No. All right, that means you're going to miss the...
That's a Tuesday. No.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
I said 10th. I meant 11th. I'm sorry.
Um,
I thought 10th was Tuesday.
Let me double check my date, but I'm pretty sure.
All right, so we're going to have an absence on February the 11th, and that is going to be by Mr. Alonso.
Yeah.
And then Selectman Imke, you're saying...
The February 4th.
Oh, okay.
Is this true?
Yes.
If you are around on the 3rd, are you going to be around
No.
the 3rd? No? Okay. Well, you can always zoom into the municipal building design or just watch that.
I'll be in Switzerland.
Well, then you don't want to do any...
For work.
So
For
just
work.
cuddle up with a hot chocolate.
It'll be 1 in the morning.
Get yourself back to early safely.
You definitely don't want to do that then. All right, do we have any public comments this evening from the public? We have Ms. Lizio and Ms. Lockwood. Any public comments from the public?
Yep, there you go.
Rhonda?
Hello, Ron Delicio, 181 Reservoir Road. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure. Now, I heard earlier the chair of the Municipal Building Design Committee state that when you walk into the town hall, it will be like a new building on the inside. So then, during the PAC presentation, there was talk that the town hall would never be suitable for their needs. I just cannot understand why we would not utilize space in the town hall when we're renovating that entire building, and it's 6,500 square feet to my knowledge, that some of that space, instead of having all these conference rooms and meeting rooms, why we couldn't incorporate PAC somehow into that building makes no sense to me, and that we would even consider spending up to $2 million on a standalone building. It just makes zero sense to me. And it doesn't appear to be cost effective at all. So I will be pushing back on that item, and the way I guess I'll quote my grandmother. She used to say, beggars can't be choosers. And, you know, basically, they're asking for the town to give them something. The town has space to give them. They need to make the best of it. I served on PAC for 5 years. In my last meeting, it was the first draft of the space needs for the future. And in that meeting, one of the last things I said to PAC was, you need to have a plan B. And I can't believe that in all these years, they have never formulated a plan B. Because that space, when we acquired that space in TCP in 2012, we knew it was a temporary space back then. So, you know, a lack of planning and preparation on your part that shouldn't amount to an emergency on my part. So I hope that we will do what makes sense and make the best of the space that we do have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lizio. Do you have any other public comments from the public? All right, any public comments from the board?
No.
None.
I want to thank the board for, what I thought was a really helpful conversation this evening. I know that we're all doing our own work in different ways, and we all come together at the very end of it. But I do appreciate, our ability to kind of gel and just really kind of work through these things. And I really want to thank the members of the Municipal Building Design Committee. I hope no one feels that I kind of went over their heads here a bit. But I think Ms. Lizio's public comment is very much so representative of many of the comments that we've heard related to this request. But I just want to thank the public for the engagement as well in the entirety of the process. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Any additional discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. The time is 10:17, and we are adjourned. To those at home, have a wonderful evening, and we will see you next week at 5:30 p.m.
Good night, everyone.